In the early years of the Cold War, during the 1950s and 1960s, the United States government was deeply concerned about the potential for mind control technologies to be used by enemy nations. This intense fear of a psychological advantage prompted the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, to embark on a covert operation that would later be known as Project MK-Ultra. This program delved into the dark and experimental realms of psychological manipulation, employing an array of substances and techniques aimed at controlling human behavior. Project MK-Ultra grew out of the CIA's interest in mind control, which was fueled partly by reports that the Soviet Union and China were developing their own methods. The CIA became determined not to be outpaced in this shadowy field, and thus began a series of experiments, sometimes shrouded in secrecy and ethical ambiguity. The program was founded on the premise that the human mind could be manipulated, and that certain chemicals could be used to enhance interrogation techniques or alter a person's thoughts and behaviors. Among the substances utilized in these experiments was lysergic acid diethylamide, commonly known as LSD. This powerful psychedelic drug was believed to have potential for enhancing the malleability of human consciousness. In various experiments, subjects were often given LSD without their knowledge to observe the effects on cognition and behavior. Some individuals were subjected to a series of intense psychological trials, leading to experiences that were both disorienting and disturbing, all under the guise of science. The experiments were not limited to just LSD. The CIA explored a variety of other drugs, including barbiturates, amphetamines, and various hallucinogens. These substances were often combined with techniques such as hypnosis and sensory deprivation. The goal was to see if researchers could implant false memories, induce confessions, or even manipulate loyalties. One infamous aspect of MK-Ultra involved an array of methods that aimed to create what was termed as Manchurian candidates, individuals conditioned to the point of performing tasks without conscious knowledge or choice. The ethical implications of these experiments are staggering. Many of the subjects were unwitting participants, often selecting patients in hospitals or the mentally ill who were not able to give informed consent. This lack of transparency raises profound questions about autonomy, morality, and human rights. During these unsettling experiments, some individuals experienced long-lasting psychological damage, resulting in shattered lives and confused memories. One striking case involved a man named Frank Olson, a scientist working for the CIA. In 1953, he was unknowingly dosed with LSD and subsequently died under mysterious circumstances, which were officially ruled a fall from a hotel window. Decades later, it surfaced that Olson had been part of MK-Ultra experiments, sending shockwaves through the public as questions arose about the extent of the agency's operations and the notion of accountability. As the years passed, Project MK-Ultra faced increasing scrutiny. Reports started to surface, and a congressional inquiry was launched in the 1970s. This brought to light the extent of these operations, resulting in significant public outcry. The ultimate revelations regarding MK-Ultra triggered a broader conversation about governmental oversight, ethical boundaries in research, and the balance between national security and individual rights. The fallout from the project was far-reaching. Many of the findings remain buried under layers of classified documents, with only fragments of information accessible to the public. This area of research continues to intrigue scholars, conspiracy theorists, and casual historians alike, raising questions about what else may have transpired behind closed doors. As the world progressed into the 21st century, there has been a notable rise in interest surrounding psychological manipulation, exploring themes in literature, film, and discussion about the limits of what can be done to an individual under the pretense of national security. What Project MK-Ultra ultimately illustrates is the sheer complexity of human psyche and the potential of it being influenced or coerced through drugs and psychological techniques. Though the project has been shuttered for decades, its legacy persists in the discussion's intriguing minds today. It serves as a reminder of the delicate balance between scientific exploration and ethical responsibility. The boundaries it pushed and the questions it raised continue to resonate in debates about human experimentation, privacy, and the ethics of power. What remains clear is that the human mind, with all its vulnerabilities and strengths, can be a battleground where the stakes are immensely high. As society continues to evolve, understanding and respecting the sanctity of the individual consciousness is more crucial than ever. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, the Central Intelligence Agency initiated a number of covert operations aimed at understanding mind control and behavior modification. One of the most peculiar and controversial of these operations was known as Operation Midnight Climax. This project was a segment of a larger program called MK-Ultra, which sought to explore the potential of various substances, psychological techniques, and other methods for manipulating human behavior under covert conditions. Operation Midnight Climax was unique in its approach, utilizing safe houses located in San Francisco and New York City. These safe houses were cleverly disguised as establishments where illicit activities could thrive. The CIA employed prostitutes to lure unsuspecting clients into these locations, where they would be subject to a variety of experiments without their knowledge. The main focus was on the effects of a powerful hallucinatory drug, LSD, which was being studied for its potential uses in interrogation and mind control. The premise was simple yet alarming. The agents ran the safe houses and monitored the interactions between the prostitutes and their clients. Once a client was brought in, the agents would secretly dose them with LSD using an eyedropper or through drinks. This method of unwittingly administering drugs had the backing of influential figures in the agency, who believed that such a tactic could unveil secret insights into human behavior and the capacity for mind control. Imagine walking into a dimly lit room, the atmosphere buzzing with excitement and secrecy. The warm glow of neon lights outside flickers as a couple emerges from the street. Inside, an operative stands behind a one-way mirror, observing. While the client interacts with the prostitute, unaware of the experiment taking place, the operative takes note of every reaction, every moment of confusion or altered perception. The aim was to study how the drug affected the individual's thoughts and reactions, thereby hoping to glean information about the potential impact of LSD in controlled environments. Operation Midnight Climax was not without its ethical dilemmas. The use of unknowing subjects raised questions about consent, morality, and the impact of such experiments on individuals. The CIA often justified their actions by claiming that the ultimate goal was national security and the protection of American interests during the Cold War. However, many critics argue that this line of reasoning does not excuse the invasive and harmful methods employed during the operation. As the project unfolded, the behavior of the clients under the influence of LSD was documented with great interest. The agents would observe how the drug altered perceptions and impacted decision-making. Some participants exhibited profound changes in understanding or clarity, while others experienced confusion and fear. The agents were privy to this altered state, sometimes taking notes or even recording the events through hidden cameras. Thus, Operation Midnight Climax highlighted the stark contrast between the participants' experiences and the chilling detachment exhibited by those conducting the experiments. As the 1960s progressed, the ethical implications of MK-Ultra and its subprojects began to surface, leading to a growing public outcry against such experiments. Whistleblowers and journalists started to expose the hidden truths behind these operations, and the government found itself under increasing scrutiny. By the time Operation Midnight Climax was exposed in the 1970s, it had become a prime example of the CIA's willingness to cross moral boundaries in the pursuit of intelligence. In the aftermath, the operation, along with MK-Ultra, catalyzed significant changes in how intelligence agencies were scrutinized and regulated. Legislative reforms were introduced to prevent such abuses of power from reoccurring. This shift in policy marked a crucial turning point in the history of intelligence operations, emphasizing the need for ethical considerations in any future experiments or operations involving human subjects. Looking back, Operation Midnight Climax serves as a fascinating yet troubling chapter in the annals of intelligence history. It is a stark reminder of how ambitious pursuits for knowledge can sometimes blur the lines between right and wrong, creating ethical quandaries that resonate even today. The legacy of these experiments calls into question the extent to which governments can go in the name of security, and the weight of responsibility they hold towards individuals caught in the crossfire of such operations. Ultimately, the stories from Operation Midnight Climax reveal not only the complexity of human behavior under influence, but also illustrate the profound consequences of underestimating the human experience. Whether through drugs, psychological manipulation, or mere observation, these experiments throw light on the delicate interplay between power, ethics, and the fundamental rights of individuals. Thus, this part of history invites reflection on the past and the ongoing dialogue about ethical practices in contemporary society. In the early years of the Cold War, when tensions were high and the threat of conflict loomed large, the United States military began to explore various substances that could potentially alter human behavior. Among these substances was a powerful hallucinogen known as LSD, or lysergic acid diethylamide. This compound, first synthesized in the 1930s, caught the attention of military researchers looking to gain an edge in psychological warfare. During the 1950s and 60s, the U.S. government conducted a series of experiments that involved administering LSD to unwitting soldiers. These experiments were part of a broader program known as MK-Ultra, which sought to understand mind control and the effects of various drugs on human behavior. Unbeknownst to many participants, they were part of a controversial study that would delve into the unknown realms of consciousness. The decision to use soldiers for these experiments stemmed from a belief that their disciplined and controlled environments would provide an ideal setting for observing the effects of LSD on behavior. Researchers were curious about how the drug might enhance or alter the capabilities of soldiers, and whether it could be used to manipulate their perceptions and responses during combat. Participants in these experiments often reported feeling a range of intense emotions and profound alterations in their sensory perceptions. Some described experiencing vivid visuals, like colors that danced and shapes that shifted, while others found themselves grappling with feelings of anxiety and confusion. The transformative experiences brought on by the drug were often compared to those reported by individuals who used it recreationally, but the context was significantly different. For soldiers, who were typically trained to maintain composure and focus, the psychedelic effects could be profoundly unsettling. One of the notable experiments took place at the Army's Edgewood Arsenal, where soldiers were given LSD without their consent. Researchers monitored them closely, seeking to understand the hallucinogen's impact on cognitive function, emotional stability, and decision-making processes. Some soldiers reported notable changes in perception, claiming they could hear whispers of distant conversations, or see patterns in the grain of wood that weren't there. Such experiences provided researchers with valuable, albeit troubling, insights into the mind under the influence of a potent drug. LSD was also tested as a potential tool for interrogation. The hope was that the drug might lower inhibitions and make subjects more susceptible to suggestion. However, the results were inconsistent, and many participants experienced severe psychological distress during and after the sessions. The ethical implications of these studies have been hotly debated, as the soldiers were often not fully informed about the nature of the substances they were receiving. Many found themselves in a state of vulnerability, stripped of the autonomy that most would believe is a fundamental right, especially in military settings. As the 1960s progressed, and the Vietnam War escalated, public perception of such experiments began to shift. Reports of the effects of LSD, both inside and outside the military, led to intensified scrutiny of the government's actions. Critics raised questions about the morality of testing drugs on human subjects, particularly in light of the trauma that some soldiers experienced during and after these experiments. The conversation surrounding informed consent, ethical treatment, and the responsibility of researchers began to gain prominence in public discourse. The legacy of these experiments has been contentious. On one hand, they contributed to the understanding of psychotropic substances and their effects on human consciousness, but on the other hand, they served as a stark reminder of the possible abuses of power in the name of national security. As a result of these studies, researchers became more aware of the potential for psychological manipulation and the risks associated with experimenting on individuals without their knowledge. Today, the conversations surrounding the use of such substances remain relevant, particularly as they relate to consent, autonomy, and ethical research practices. The experimentation of the 1950s and 60s taught us significant lessons about the importance of transparency and the need to prioritize humanity in the pursuit of knowledge. As we continue to explore the boundaries of science and the human experience, it is crucial to reflect on the past, ensuring that the rights and dignity of individuals are upheld in all future endeavors. The history of LSD experiments on soldiers sheds light not only on the complexities of human behavior and thought, but also on the moral responsibilities researchers carry. As we delve deeper into understanding the mind and its capabilities, recognizing the lessons from history will guide ethical practices in the future. The Artichoke Project was a covert program initiated by the CIA in the early years of the Cold War, particularly in the 1950s. Its aim was to explore various techniques for interrogation, primarily through the use of drugs and hypnosis. This initiative was part of a broader series of programs aimed at understanding mind control and enhancing the agency's ability to extract information from detainees. This project is often viewed as an offshoot of a more infamous effort known as MK-Ultra, which became known for its controversial and experimental methods to study how the human mind could be influenced and manipulated. Both projects were born out of the paranoia and urgency of the times, amidst fears of communist espionage and the increasing complexities of international espionage. In this period, the United States was seeking ways to gain an upper hand, not just in warfare, but also in the intelligence arena. Artichoke specifically sought to develop methods that could make subjects more susceptible to interrogation techniques. Researchers experimented with a mixture of psychoactive drugs, including LSD and other substances believed to affect perception and reality. The idea was that administering these substances could potentially break down an individual's resistance during questioning and unveil hidden information. In addition to drug manipulation, hypnosis was another tool that the project aimed to harness. The belief was that individuals under hypnosis could be more easily guided to remember valuable information, or to reduce their resistance to interrogation. By inducing a trance-like state, interrogators hoped to tap into a person's subconscious, which they believed could lead to revealing truths that might not be accessible in a conscious state. The secrecy surrounding Artichoke meant that many of the methods and results of its experiments remained classified for years, leading to heightened speculation about its ethical implications. Those involved in the operations often pushed the limits of moral considerations, believing they were acting in the interests of national security. However, this lack of transparency would later contribute to a broader backlash against government-sponsored experiments. Historically, Artichoke is significant because it reflects a time when the U.S. government was grappling with ethical lines in intelligence practices. The Cold War atmosphere encouraged not just the advancement of technologies, but also the exploration of psychological methodologies that stretched the boundaries of human rights. As information about these programs began to emerge in the following decades, it spurred debates about ethics, personal freedom, and state control. By the time the Church Committee investigated the CIA's activities in the 1970s, both Artichoke and MK-Ultra had come under scrutiny. This committee was tasked with examining abuses committed by the intelligence agency, focusing on accountability and oversight. It was revealed that both projects had engaged in practices that many considered unethical, leading to legislative changes aimed at regulating the intelligence activities of the CIA and ensuring the protection of individual rights. The legacy of Artichoke continues to echo in contemporary discussions about government transparency and individual liberties. Debates around the responsibilities of intelligence agencies in democratic societies are still relevant, as the balance between national security and personal freedoms remains a pressing issue. As the years passed, trends in psychology and neuroscience shifted, leading researchers to reject some of the more radical theories of mind control. Today, ethical guidelines for research strictly prohibit many of the practices once employed in projects like Artichoke. This evolution in understanding underscores the importance of maintaining ethical frameworks within research and experimentation. In summary, the Artichoke Project serves as a complex chapter in intelligence history. It reveals not only the lengths to which agencies would go to secure information, but also the important questions about morality, consent, and human rights that still resonate in discussions of intelligence operations today. As history continues to unfold, the lessons learned from past programs push us toward a more conscientious approach to security and personal freedoms in the modern age. In the realm of defense and intelligence, the pursuit of understanding the human mind and its potential has led to some intriguing research initiatives. One of the most well-known projects in this context is the Stargate Project. This initiative was launched during the Cold War era by the United States government, with the aim of exploring the potential military applications of psychic phenomena, particularly a practice known as remote viewing. Remote viewing is the claimed ability to perceive or describe details about a distant or unseen target through extrasensory perception. Imagine being able to gather information from afar, without the need for technological surveillance or physical presence. The concept seemed to offer a revolutionary approach to intelligence gathering, which piqued the interest of military and governmental officials. The Stargate Project officially began in the 1970s, initiated by the CIA and later passed to the Defense Intelligence Agency. It involved various studies and experiments to test the validity of remote viewing as a viable source of intelligence. Researchers sought to train individuals who claimed to possess such abilities, as well as to investigate whether these skills could be replicated in others through specific techniques or training protocols. One of the notable figures in this project was Dr. Harold Puthoff, a physicist who worked closely with parapsychologists. He and others conducted experiments to assess the reliability and accuracy of remote viewing sessions. These sessions typically involved participants, dubbed as viewers, attempting to describe locations or objects without any prior knowledge or cues. Results varied, and while some sessions yielded impressive details, others fell short of expectations. Critics were quick to challenge the scientific merit of the project, pointing out the lack of empirical rigor and the challenges in validating psychic claims. Nevertheless, proponents argued that the project provided compelling evidence that warranted further exploration. They insisted that even if results appeared inconsistent, some viewers demonstrated remarkable perceptions that could not easily be dismissed. The interest in remote viewing spurred a series of high-profile demonstrations. One famous example involved a remote viewer attempting to find a downed Russian aircraft. The viewer reported specific details, including the location and condition of the wreckage. Instances like these fueled the idea that remote viewing could be a practical tool for intelligence operations. Despite these intriguing findings, the Stargate project faced significant scrutiny and skepticism from the broader scientific community. Many argued that anecdotal evidence was not sufficient to justify ongoing investment in such pursuits. Eventually, in the mid-1990s, the program was declassified and funding was cut, leading to its official cessation. Critics hailed this as a victory for scientific reasoning, while believers in psychic phenomena mourned the loss of what they saw as a valuable frontier in human capabilities. Though the project formally ended, its legacy continues to stir debate and fascination. The discussions surrounding remote viewing have evolved, with many people advocating for a more nuanced understanding of consciousness, intuition, and the untapped potential of the human mind. In popular culture, remote viewing has captured the imagination of many, spawning books, documentaries, and fiction that explore the possibilities of extrasensory perception further. Various authors and researchers have since picked up the torch, investigating whether elements of remote viewing could be linked to more established fields of psychology and neuroscience. They explore questions about the nature of consciousness, intuition, and how the mind relates to the environment. Questions about the boundaries of human capability and perception remain at the forefront of exploration. Moreover, elements of the Stargate project have inspired numerous workshops, seminars, and courses that teach individuals about remote viewing techniques. These programs often emphasize the importance of quieting the mind, focusing intent, and opening oneself to intuition. Some practitioners share their experiences with audience members, recounting instances of surprisingly accurate descriptions gleaned from their exercises. The conversation around remote viewing often touches on broader themes of belief, skepticism, and the search for truth. Individuals are drawn to the mystery and intrigue behind the paranormal, seeking to reconcile the extraordinary claims with their own experiences and understanding of reality. Scientific inquiry and personal belief systems frequently clash, making it a rich subject for discussion. As we reflect on the Stargate project and the exploration of psychic phenomena, we are left with a tapestry of questions and insights. The project teaches us about the boundaries of scientific inquiry and the human quest for knowledge. Whether or not one subscribes to the validity of remote viewing, the discussions it ignites challenge the way we perceive our abilities and ourselves. In the end, the legacy of the Stargate project continues to inspire not only curiosity about psychic phenomena, but also a deeper exploration into the potential of the human mind. It invites us to contemplate the possibilities that lie beyond conventional understanding, urging a blend of skepticism and wonder in the pursuit of knowledge. The fascination with what lies beyond the visible reaches of human experience remains a profoundly captivating journey. MK-Naomi was a covert program developed during the Cold War era primarily by the Central Intelligence Agency. Its purpose was to create a variety of biological agents and toxins that could be used in warfare or clandestine operations. The program is part of a broader effort by governments during this period to gain an upper hand in the realm of biochemical warfare, an area that posed unique ethical and strategic challenges. The origins of MK-Naomi can be traced back to the broader MK-ULTRA program, which focused on mind control and psychological manipulation through a range of experiments, including the use of drugs and psychological conditioning. However, MK-Naomi pivoted more directly towards the development of biological agents, underlining the strong interest in utilizing biological weapons as a means of warfare without the overt signs of traditional military confrontations. One of the critical components of MK-Naomi was the exploration of naturally occurring toxins and the potential for engineering specific pathogens. For instance, scientists investigated various substances derived from plants or animals that had lethal effects on human beings. The belief was that certain naturally occurring compounds could be harnessed to create a biological weapon that was discrete, difficult to trace, and capable of being deployed without immediate detection. The program also involved tests on how these substances could be delivered. This included not only classic methods like ingestion or injection, but also more innovative approaches such as aerosol dispersion. Imagine a scenario where a toxin could be released into the air, targeting a specific area, creating chaos while leaving no trace of the origin. This aspect of MK-Naomi underscored the lengths to which researchers were willing to go in developing methods of warfare that would be both efficient and deniable. Another facet of MK-Naomi was the covert experimentation on unsuspecting subjects. In the name of national security, ethical considerations were often cast aside. This lack of oversight meant that many human subjects were exposed to dangerous agents without their knowledge or consent. These experiments were justified under the premise of gathering data to better understand how biological agents could be used effectively. Throughout the program, extensive research was conducted into the effects of various chemical agents on human physiology. This could range from incapacitation agents that disrupted normal bodily functions to neurotoxins that incapacitated individuals quickly and quietly. The aim was to create a range of agents suitable for different tactical scenarios, ensuring that operatives could employ them based on the specific needs of a mission. Furthermore, MK-Naomi also examined the potential for hybrid agents that could combine aspects of both chemical and biological warfare. This blend could heighten the effectiveness of agents, potentially leading to more severe psychological and physiological impacts on targeted groups. The intersectionality of chemical and biological principles meant that developments in one area could easily influence the other, providing operatives with a more versatile toolkit for covert operations. After its initial development and numerous experiments, MK-Naomi ultimately laid the groundwork for future research on biological agents within the military and intelligence communities. The ethical implications of such a program raised significant concerns among the public, leading to debates about bioethics that continue to the present day. As the dangers associated with biological warfare became more evident, international treaties such as the Biological Weapons Convention sought to regulate and ban the use of these types of weapons. However, the legacy of programs like MK-Naomi continues to cast a long shadow over discussions surrounding bioweapons and their potential implications. The information that emerged about MK-Naomi has added complexity to our understanding of covert operations during the Cold War. It highlights the lengths to which governments were willing to go in their pursuit of security and intelligence. While the technical details of these programs can sometimes be daunting, the real story often lies in the ethical dilemmas they present. How far should nations go in the name of defense? What are the moral responsibilities when it comes to experimentation on humans? Despite the conclusion of the MK-Naomi program and similar initiatives, the conversation about biological warfare has not waned. In modern context, with advancements in genetic engineering and biotechnology, the implications of biological agents have become even more potent and relevant. As we reflect on the past and consider the future, it is crucial to remain vigilant about the ethical aspects and the potential consequences of developing such potent agents, remembering that the lessons of MK-Naomi are still pertinent today. Understanding this history adds depth to our awareness of contemporary bioethical discussions and the importance of regulating such research to protect humanity's future. In the landscape of contemporary intelligence and surveillance, there exists a lesser-known project known as Zebra Operation Surveillance. This initiative serves as an intriguing yet controversial chapter in the broader narrative of governmental oversight and national security within the United States. While many might be familiar with more mainstream programs that monitor communications or track online behaviors, Zebra Operation Surveillance operates under a shroud of relative obscurity, aiming its focus on individuals suspected of potential unrest. The project emerged in a climate of increasing concern regarding public protests and social movements. In an era defined by digital communication and the rapid dissemination of information, authorities found themselves grappling with new methods of organizing and mobilization among citizens. The goal of Zebra Operation Surveillance is to maintain awareness of these groups and individuals who are believed to exhibit signs of potential discord or dissent against governmental policies. At its core, the project utilizes a range of techniques that blend traditional surveillance methods with advanced technology. These methods can include ambient data collection, which gathers information from public interactions, social media activities, and other online behaviors that may hint at dissenting attitudes. Data analytics play a significant role as algorithms analyze patterns in communication that might suggest unrest or protests are being planned. Imagine, for instance, a social media account that begins to gain traction due to frequent postings about social inequality or environmental activism. Zebra Operation Surveillance might identify this account as a potential focal point for gathering intelligence, monitoring its interactions to better understand the underlying sentiments and affiliations of its followers. This could potentially lead to the identification of connected individuals and networks that could pose a challenge to the status quo. As with any surveillance initiative, ethical considerations and constitutional rights come into play. Critics argue that projects like Zebra Operation Surveillance can infringe upon privacy rights, as the line between national security and individual freedoms can easily blur. They emphasize the potential for misuse of the gathered data and the broadening of surveillance practices that may inadvertently target individuals based on their beliefs or associations rather than concrete actions. Moreover, there is a growing concern about the effectiveness of such surveillance operations. While monitoring may provide authorities with insights into potential unrest, it may also create an atmosphere of mistrust and retaliation among citizens. When people feel they are being watched, it can lead to self-censorship and deter constructive dialogue around important societal issues. Rather than addressing the root causes of unrest, an increased surveillance presence may further alienate communities and breed resentment. Zebra Operation Surveillance also highlights the technological arms race between private citizens and the state. As people become increasingly aware of the tools used to monitor their activities, they often seek ways to protect their privacy. Encryption, anonymous communication platforms, and other technologies are becoming mainstream defenses against surveillance. This cat-and-mouse dynamic raises questions about who ultimately holds power in this relationship. Despite the controversy surrounding its existence and operation, Zebra Operation Surveillance reflects the ongoing evolution of surveillance practices in response to contemporary societal dynamics. For every action taken to monitor potential threats, there are corresponding responses from the public who value their freedoms and rights. This complex interplay between security and liberty accentuates a fundamental aspect of democracy, balancing the need for safety while protecting individual rights. Additionally, the visibility of these operations brings to light broader themes of accountability and transparency in the realm of government activities. Citizens are increasingly demanding that their leaders and institutions operate within the frameworks of law and ethics. This calls for a re-examination of the tools and methods used to ensure that they do not breach the trust bestowed upon them by the populace. In exploring the nuances of Zebra Operation Surveillance, one cannot dismiss the broader implications for society and governance. As techniques evolve and the availability of data expands, ongoing discussions about the appropriateness of surveillance measures within a democratic framework remain crucial. These conversations encourage a deeper examination of the values we hold in regard to civil liberties, pushing society towards a more balanced approach to national security. In conclusion, Zebra Operation Surveillance stands as a substantive example of the diverse methodologies employed in modern surveillance practices. It serves as a reminder of the delicate interplay between security and personal freedom, urging us to consider how far we are willing to go to protect our society while preserving our rights as individuals. The ongoing dialogue surrounding this project and similar operations will undoubtedly shape the future landscape of surveillance, governance, and, ultimately, the fabric of American society. As we continue to navigate these complex waters, let's remain engaged in advocating for a fair and just approach to the multifaceted issues at hand. In the early 1960s, during the height of the Cold War, the U.S. government was exploring unconventional methods for intelligence gathering. One of the more unusual projects developed during this time was known as Acoustic Kitty. The plan involved covertly utilizing cats fitted with listening devices in an attempt to gather intelligence on the Soviet Union. The idea stemmed from the growing need for more innovative spying methods. Traditional methods were often complicated, risky, and less effective in urban environments. Cats, being agile, inconspicuous, and capable of slipping into places unnoticed, were seen as ideal candidates for this unique espionage mission. It was believed that these small creatures could gather intelligence while going about their daily lives, observing and eavesdropping on conversations that might reveal critical information. The project was initiated by the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA. They had a vision that a cat could act as a mobile listening post, stealthily positioning itself near sensitive conversations. The plan included implanting a microphone into the cat's ear and a radio transmitter at the base of its skull. This meant that the cats would be able to transmit audio back to operatives who would monitor the information being collected. To make this ambitious idea a reality, the CIA had to train the cats. This involved not only the delicate surgery to implant the devices, but also extensive training for the animals. The hope was that with enough conditioning and patience, these cats would be able to navigate urban environments, approach targets, and remain undetected while gathering valuable intelligence. However, the journey of Acoustic Kitty proved to be fraught with challenges. Firstly, training cats to follow commands and behave in a certain way is incredibly difficult, as any cat owner knows. Unlike dogs, who are often eager to please, cats tend to be independent and less responsive to training. The agents working on the project quickly discovered that getting a cat to sit still or follow a specific direction for a mission was a significant hurdle. Another major obstacle was the development of the technology required for the cats. The devices had to be small and lightweight, and engineers faced difficulties creating a microphone and transmitter that could be comfortably implanted in a cat's body without causing harm or discomfort. After much trial and error, prototypes were finally created, but doubts lingered about their effectiveness and reliability. In an ironic twist, one of the most famous incidents during the project involved the very first Acoustic Kitty. While testing her capabilities outside of the CIA facility, the cat, unfortunately, met an unexpected fate. As she attempted to approach a target, she was struck by a taxi. This incident not only highlighted the risks these animals were exposed to, but also cast a shadow of uncertainty over the entire project. Following this unfortunate event and multiple complications, the Acoustic Kitty program was ultimately abandoned. The project required a significant financial investment, and the results proved to be less than satisfactory. Although the concept was intriguing, it became evident that the implementation was far more complex than originally anticipated. The world of espionage continued to evolve with new technology, and the CIA moved towards more conventional methods of surveillance that promised greater success. Even though Acoustic Kitty did not achieve its intended goals, the concept has left a lasting legacy. It serves as a reminder of the lengths to which intelligence agencies will go in their quest for information. The tale of Acoustic Kitty has morphed into a curious piece of Cold War history, capturing the imagination of many as the idea of spying through animals continues to intrigue popular culture. Today, stories of the Acoustic Kitty Project inspire both amusement and incredulity. Some people find it hard to believe that such ideas could ever be taken seriously, while others recognize it as an example of human creativity and the often bizarre approaches that can emerge from high-stakes situations. Whether viewed as a failed experiment or a fascinating diversion, Acoustic Kitty remains a unique footnote in the annals of espionage history. As we reflect on the Acoustic Kitty Project, it challenges us to think about the future of intelligence gathering. With the rapid advancements in technology, we see new solutions and methodologies for spying that were unimaginable in the past. Drones, satellite surveillance, and powerful data analytics are now the tools of choice, while animals, once thought of as secret agents, have faded into a whimsical part of the story. The memory of Acoustic Kitty serves as a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge and information can lead to unexpected and unconventional ideas. Perhaps it is this creative spirit of innovation, even when applied in unconventional ways, that continues to drive the evolution of espionage and intelligence in our world today. It shows us that sometimes the most curious ideas can lead to new possibilities, even if they do not come to fruition in the way one might have hoped. The exploration of Acoustic Kitty remains a fascinating glimpse into the lengths to which humanity will go when faced with challenging and uncertain times. In the 1950s and 1960s, the world of psychology and psychiatry was undergoing significant transformations, driven in part by the exploration of the human mind's complexities and the pursuit of effective treatment for mental health issues. One of the more controversial figures during this era was Dr. Ewan Cameron, a psychiatrist known for his work with the Canadian Psychiatric Association and a member of the American Psychiatric Association. His research, particularly during a time of heightened interest in mind control and experiments, had a profound impact, both scientifically and ethically. Dr. Cameron was the director of the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal, where he conducted various innovative, yet ethically questionable experiments. His work was part of a broader program sponsored by the CIA named MK-Ultra, which sought to explore mind control techniques during the Cold War. This program raised questions about the limits of psychological methods and how far researchers might go in the name of science. Dr. Cameron believed that many psychological issues were rooted in past traumas, and he sought to find ways to effectively erase those traumas to help individuals heal. One of the most notable methods he employed was a treatment approach he referred to as psychic driving. This method involved prolonged periods of isolation and sleep therapy, where patients would be subjected to repetitive audio messages and intensive psychotherapy in a controlled environment. The premise behind psychic driving was that by creating a blank slate in the mind, patients could be retrained to replace negative memories with positive ones. In essence, Cameron believed that if he could access the subconscious, he could encourage individuals to forget their traumas. The sleep therapy itself was particularly intriguing. Patients would be placed in sleep rooms designed to promote prolonged rest or sedation, and they were often kept in these rooms for days on end. During this time, patients were exposed to a range of stimuli, including soothing sounds and recorded messages that were intended to reinforce positive thoughts. For example, someone who had experienced a traumatic event might listen to phrases aimed at reshaping their perception of that event, repeated over and over in the background. The hope was that through this process, they would be able to disconnect from painful memories and reframe their experiences. However, the methods developed by Dr. Cameron quickly drew both attention and controversy. Many of the participants in his studies reported adverse effects from their time in the sleep rooms. Instead of leaving with a renewed sense of self or recovery from their psychological distress, patients often encountered confusion, disorientation, and memory loss. Rather than simply forgetting negative experiences, numerous individuals struggled with a fractured sense of identity, as the experiments had left them feeling more alienated from their previous selves. The ethical implications of Dr. Cameron's work have been the subject of extensive debate. Critics argue that the experiments did not only cross ethical boundaries, but raised significant questions about informed consent. Most participants had no idea that their treatment was part of a larger CIA operation aimed at mind control, an unsettling realization that only heightened the controversy surrounding Cameron's methods. Today, Dr. Cameron's work is often referenced to highlight the importance of ethical considerations in psychological practice. While his intentions may have stemmed from a desire to help individuals, the methods employed and the outcomes observed have made it clear that the pursuit of knowledge in the field of psychology must always be tempered with the respect for the well-being of those participating in research. Despite these challenges, Dr. Ewan Cameron's experiments did contribute to our understanding of the human mind, particularly in the areas of trauma and memory. The notion that traumatic experiences can alter one's psyche is widely acknowledged in psychology today. Cameron's work serves both as a cautionary tale and a point of reference, illustrating the complexities inherent in mental health treatment and the responsibilities that come with the healing profession. As we reflect on Dr. Cameron's contributions and the shadows they cast, it is essential to remember that the journey into the human psyche is fraught with both potential and peril. The quest for healing, especially in a world with deep-seated traumas, requires the utmost care, compassion, and ethical integrity to ensure that we do not repeat the mistakes of the past while exploring the vast landscapes of the human mind. The Manhattan Project is one of the most significant scientific endeavors in modern history. Initiated during World War II, this large-scale project aimed to develop nuclear weapons, marking a turning point in scientific research and warfare. The project involved some of the brightest minds of that era, including notable scientists such as J. Robert Oppenheimer and Enrico Fermi. This narrative explores the origins, implications, and secrets surrounding the Manhattan Project, shedding light on its multifaceted nature. The Manhattan Project began in response to the fears that Nazi Germany was on the brink of creating an atomic bomb. In early 1939, a group of scientists, including Hungarian physicist Leo Szilard, discovered that nuclear fission could release enormous energy, leading to a chain reaction. The United States government, realizing the potential implications of this discovery, sought to not only understand the science behind atomic energy, but also to harness it for military purposes. This urgency led to an increased investment in research, which catalyzed a sense of secrecy and urgency. The project formally launched in 1942 under the guidance of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, with a network of research facilities spanning across the country. Key sites included Los Alamos in New Mexico, Oak Ridge in Tennessee, and Hanford in Washington. These locations were chosen strategically to utilize the diverse landscapes and resources available, which allowed scientists and engineers to work on various aspects of nuclear technology, such as isotope separation and plutonium production. As the project evolved, it became clear that the scale and complexity required an unprecedented collaboration across different scientific disciplines. The eclectic team brought together chemists, physicists, engineers, and military personnel, all committed to the common goal of understanding and creating nuclear fission. The interactions among the scientists were rich with ideas and creativity, leading to groundbreaking innovations that would define the atomic age. Amid the atmosphere of collaboration, an air of secrecy shrouded the project. Due to the potential consequences a nuclear weapon could unleash, the government took great care to manage information. The majority of details were classified, meaning that discussions about the project were often limited to those directly involved. This was not just to maintain a military advantage, but also to ensure that knowledge about nuclear capabilities would not fall into the wrong hands. This necessity for discretion eventually led to the formation of a covert intelligence operation by the CIA to monitor developments in atomic research globally, particularly in enemy territories. The project was not without its ethical dilemmas. As the scientists engaged deeply with their work, many began to grapple with the implications of their discoveries. The potential for destruction raised moral questions that weighed heavily on the consciousness of some researchers. However, the overwhelming belief was that developing a nuclear weapon would ultimately shorten the war and save lives. Many felt a sense of urgency as they witnessed the unfolding tragedy of the war, compelling them to prioritize military success over ethical considerations. In 1945, after years of tireless research and a considerable amount of funding, the Manhattan Project produced its first successful weapon test, known as the Trinity Test, in the New Mexico desert. The explosion released energy equivalent to approximately 20,000 tons of TNT, a moment that marked humanity's entrance into the atomic age. The shockwave of this event not only changed military strategy, but also initiated a new era of geopolitical relations defined by nuclear power. Following the test, the project reached its zenith when 2 atomic bombs were dropped on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. Contrary to the moral quandaries faced by scientists, the devastating efficacy of these weapons resulted in Japan's surrender, thereby marking a profound shift in world dynamics. However, the world was now left to reckon with the repercussions of nuclear warfare, setting the stage for decades of tension, conflict, and nuclear arms races during the Cold War. The Manhattan Project's legacy transcends its immediate outcomes. It revolutionized science and technology, ultimately leading to advancements in medicine, energy, and particle physics. The secrets and intelligence efforts connected to the project also paved the way for the development of espionage techniques crucial for global power dynamics during the latter half of the 20th century. In conclusion, the Manhattan Project stands as a landmark in scientific progress and military history. Its origins, rooted in fear, evolved into a complex narrative of innovation, secrecy, and ethical confrontation. While the project fulfilled its initial military objectives, it also left behind questions and consequences that resonate to this day, shaping how nations approach science, war, and diplomacy. The enormity of its impacts continues to be felt, serving as a reminder of the dual-edged nature of scientific knowledge and technological advancement. Project QKHILLTOP was a covert initiative developed by the Central Intelligence Agency, aimed at understanding and counteracting the psychological techniques employed in brainwashing, particularly those attributed to Chinese methodologies during the Cold War era. This project reflects a period marked by intense psychological warfare, where understanding the human mind became crucial not only for intelligence gathering, but also in securing national interests. The genesis of Project QKHILLTOP can be traced back to the alarming reports emerging in the 1950s about the effectiveness of brainwashing techniques, especially after the Korean War. American soldiers returning home shared harrowing tales of indoctrination and psychological manipulation that left deep and lasting impacts on their minds. These accounts challenged prevailing notions of human resilience and sparked a deep concern among U.S. intelligence agencies regarding the vulnerability of individuals to psychological coercion. To effectively address these concerns, Project QKHILLTOP sought to study the methods used in brainwashing and develop counter-strategies. One prominent aspect of this endeavor involved analyzing the psychological constructs that make individuals susceptible to coercive tactics. The CIA invested resources into understanding how environments, social pressures, and specific stimuli could reshape beliefs and behaviors. A significant phase of this program included extensive research on coercive persuasion techniques. Researchers delved into the mechanisms of thought reform, exploring how certain environments could foster a condition where individuals would accept new beliefs, often conflicting with their previously held views. This approach not only shed light on the methods used by adversarial regimes, but also provided valuable insights into the psychological theories supporting these techniques. Through data collection and secretive experiments, researchers probed into various methods of influence. They studied the impact of misinformation, isolation, and the cultivation of dependency, acknowledging that these tools could be wielded to alter someone's worldview drastically. Project QKHILLTOP also explored the neurological underpinnings that could render individuals impressionable under duress, unraveling the complex interplay between fear, control, and submission. The program did not solely focus on analysis, it also fostered a creative environment for developing countermeasures. The CIA sought to create training programs and informational strategies that could fortify individuals against such psychological manipulation. These counter-strategies included educating agents and operatives on resilience and critical thinking, encouraging skepticism towards external influences, and fostering the ability to recognize and resist subtle forms of coercion. Moreover, Project QKHILLTOP was not limited to direct military applications. It also honed in on cultural factors, examining how propaganda served as a vehicle for brainwashing. By unlocking the intricacies of messaging and public perception, the project aimed to equip American leaders with the knowledge needed to counteract foreign narratives that could sway public opinion or erode trust in institutions. Importantly, Project QKHILLTOP offered insights into the resilience of the human spirit. As the project unfolded, it became clear that despite the adversities, individuals possessed an innate ability to resist extreme forms of psychological manipulation. This realization encouraged further exploration beyond mere resistance, leading researchers to investigate the potential healing processes individuals undergo after trauma. With the culmination of findings from Project QKHILLTOP, the CIA sought to inform not only military strategies, but also policies related to information and psychological operations. This program significantly contributed to the broader efforts of the U.S. government to navigate the complexities of international relations in an era dominated by psychological warfare. In retrospect, Project QKHILLTOP serves as a relevant chapter within the larger narrative of intelligence operations. It highlights the profound understanding that knowledge of psychological influence not only protects national security, but also enriches the comprehension of human nature itself. By examining how belief systems can be molded and the strategies to counteract such influence, the insights gleaned from this project continue to resonate in contemporary discussions about propaganda, mental fortitude, and the ethics of psychological intervention. As we look back, the legacy of Project QKHILLTOP underscores the importance of safeguarding mental autonomy and understanding the diverse, multifaceted ways that beliefs can be shaped. In a world where information swiftly travels and narratives can sway public consciousness, the learnings from this historic initiative remain pertinent, informing ongoing dialogues around autonomy, influence, and the intricate dance of human psychology. The MK-Delta program is a fascinating and controversial chapter in the history of intelligence and psychological experimentation. It operates within a larger framework that includes the infamous MK-Ultra, a series of clandestine experiments conducted by the CIA in the mid-20th century. While MK-Ultra primarily focused on mind control and behavioral manipulation using various substances and techniques, MK-Delta took a different approach, specifically emphasizing the use of biological substances for covert operations, particularly overseas. To understand the significance of the MK-Delta program, it is essential to recognize the context in which these operations were conceived. The Cold War era, marked by tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, fueled an arms race not only of nuclear weapons but also of psychological and biological warfare strategies. During this time, the U.S. government sought methods to gain an edge over its adversaries, leading to an intense focus on unconventional warfare techniques. MK-Delta was known to develop and utilize biological agents that could potentially serve various operational purposes. This included the creation of substances that could induce illness or incapacitate targets without causing immediate detection. The covert nature of these operations meant that the substances were often designed to seamlessly blend into an enemy's environment, making attribution and accountability virtually impossible. One of the most talked about aspects of MK-Delta was its exploration of using toxins and other biological agents that could be administered covertly. Imagine a scenario where a biological agent might be introduced into a target's food or drink. This agent could incapacitate an individual or cause a brief but significant impairment, allowing operatives to gain an advantage without direct confrontation. Such tactics represent a shadowy side of the intelligence community's efforts to manipulate outcomes without the traditional means of warfare. The program also explored the potential of using naturally occurring substances, such as plants and fungi, known for their psychoactive or toxic properties. These substances, often labeled as exotic, were studied for their possible applications in operational settings. Picture operatives in the field, trained in the knowledge of these biological agents, prepared to use them as tools for espionage or sabotage. This aspect of MK-Delta reflects a unique intersection of biology and strategy, showcasing the lengths to which governments might go to pursue their interests. Furthermore, MK-Delta's implications stretch beyond mere physical incapacitation. It speaks to a much larger narrative about the ethics and morality of using biological substances for manipulation and control. The questions that arise from such operations are complex. Where do we draw the line between national security and violation of human rights? The use of biological agents in covert military operations raises serious concerns, especially considering the potential for unintended consequences that could harm not just the intended targets but also innocent bystanders. While much about MK-Delta remains shrouded in secrecy, it is clear that the program was not merely an academic exercise. It was the culmination of years of research and experimentation that sought to harness the power of biology and psychology in the service of national interests. This intersection of life sciences and intelligence operations intricately weaves into the broader tapestry of how nations have explored the boundaries of power during times of conflict. The risks associated with the development and deployment of biological agents are substantial. Not only can they lead to loss of life or severe illness, but they can also escalate tensions between nations if discovered. The potential for a backlash is high, as is the possibility of these substances being weaponized by adversaries who might gain access to similar technologies. As we reflect on the legacy of programs like MK-Delta, it is essential to consider the lessons learned and the ethical frameworks that should guide future endeavors in intelligence and biological research. The interplay of science, ethics, and national security continues to be a critical conversation in contemporary society. The urgency of establishing clear guidelines and moral imperatives in the realm of biological experimentation can't be understated, especially as we navigate a world where such technologies may become ever more accessible. In summary, the MK-Delta program epitomizes the intricate connection between covert operations and biological sciences during a tense period in history. It serves as a reminder of the lengths to which nations may go in pursuit of their objectives, while highlighting the moral complexities that arise from such endeavors. The story of MK-Delta and similar programs remains essential not just for historians and scholars, but for anyone interested in the ethical implications of science when intertwined with state interests. This exploration resonates today as we grapple with similar challenges in technological advancements and their repercussions. In the 1970s, a unique and intriguing chapter in the realm of scientific investigation began at the Stanford Research Institute, often referred to as SRI. This period was marked by an exploration into areas that straddled the line between science and the enigmatic, particularly extrasensory perception, commonly known as especially, and psychokinesis, the ability to influence physical systems using only the mind. SRI became a focal point for research that delved into the possibilities of human consciousness, extending beyond the conventional five senses. This work attracted attention from various corners, notably the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, who were interested in the potential applications of such abilities. The CIA sought to explore whether these phenomena could be harnessed for intelligence-gathering purposes, especially during the tense backdrop of the Cold War. Among the most notable figures involved in this research was Dr. Harold Puthoff, a physicist who, alongside his colleague Russell Targ, embarked on numerous experiments aimed at quantifying and understanding these apparent human capabilities. Their research often featured the practice known as remote viewing, a method where individuals attempted to perceive or describe details about a distant or unseen target, relying solely on their mental faculties. In one such experiment, a participant was asked to visualize a location, hidden from view, and describe it to the researchers. The results were astonishing when participants provided detailed descriptions that generally matched the target locations accurately. This led to further exploration and set the stage for additional studies, pushing the boundaries of what was considered scientifically acceptable at the time. Another area of investigation was psychokinesis, which concerns the idea that mental intention could influence physical objects. Experiments were conducted where participants were asked to try to move objects, like dice or random number generators, using only their minds. Though the outcomes were often inconclusive by strict scientific standards, a handful of trials suggested there could be more at play than mere chance. These experiments ignited curiosity and controversy within the scientific community, attracting skeptics and enthusiasts alike. The interest from the CIA was not merely about satisfying curiosity. They envisioned practical applications. For instance, could individuals tap into these extraordinary abilities to gather intelligence, or even influence adversaries? It was a captivating idea and fitting into the broader strategy at the time, which included various unconventional approaches to espionage and warfare. The work at SRI eventually led to the establishment of a dedicated program called Stargate, which aimed to explore the potential of psychic phenomena for military and intelligence purposes. Spanning several years, the program fostered a range of experiments, some of which received significant funding and institutional support, given the potential implications of a successful outcome. While the findings at SRI gave rise to many sensational claims and fueled popular culture's fascination with paranormal abilities, the scientific community remained divided. Critics argued that the methodologies were flawed, and the results were easily explainable through chance or other psychological phenomena. Nevertheless, the work at SRI opened the door for discussions about consciousness, perception, and the nature of reality itself. In popular media, the notions of ESP and psychokinesis have been portrayed in various lenses, from thrillers to documentaries, often dramatizing the extraordinary claims associated with these topics. The legacy of SRI's investigations is that they shifted perceptions about what might be possible, igniting a continued interest in the potential of the human mind. In retrospect, the SRI investigations were not solely about validating paranormal claims. They prompted deeper philosophical questions regarding the limits of human capability and understanding. What defines human perception? Could there be uncharted territories within our consciousness that science has yet to explain? As the years passed, many of the ideas proposed by the researchers were met with skepticism. However, they undeniably encouraged individuals to think outside conventional frameworks. Though the program eventually came to a close and some findings were deemed inconclusive, the legacy of SRI's investigations continues to intrigue scholars, enthusiasts, and the curious alike. The complex interplay between science, belief, and exploration has left a rich tapestry of narrative around ESP and psychokinesis. Ultimately, the research conducted at SRI is a reminder of humanity's enduring quest for knowledge about the mysteries that lie just beyond the horizon of understanding. Though the outcomes may not have led to definitive conclusions, the journey itself offered a unique exploration into the extraordinary potential of the human mind. In the realm of Cold War history, one of the most intriguing chapters revolves around Cuba's Fidel Castro and the CIA's fervent efforts to eliminate him. The lengths to which intelligence agencies go to achieve their goals can often seem almost surreal, with plots that appear more like a screenplay for a spy thriller than real-life operations. Fidel Castro, the charismatic leader of Cuba, was a thorn in the side of the United States, particularly following the Cuban Revolution in 1959. His alliance with the Soviet Union and the establishment of a communist regime just a short distance from American shores made him a target of the U.S. government. The CIA, determined to neutralize what they considered a significant threat, devised a series of elaborate assassination plots against him. One of the most bizarre methods proposed by the CIA involved the use of poison. Agents considered a variety of toxic substances, including a deadly poison called microdot, which was intended to be applied to a pen, creating a seemingly harmless writing tool that would deliver a lethal dose upon contact with Castro's skin. This method illustrates not only the creativity of the CIA, but also the lengths they were willing to go to eliminate Castro discreetly. There were plans to lace his food or drinks with poison as well, potentially making him an unwitting participant in his own demise. Another infamous plot unveiled was the exploding cigar scheme. The idea was to create a cigar rigged with explosives that would detonate when Castro lit it, The cigar was designed to look entirely ordinary, making it a perfect tool for an assassination that could be cloaked in the guise of a true Cuban tradition. The plan, while audacious, ultimately failed due to issues with the device and likely the unlikelihood of Castro ever accepting a cigar from unknown sources. The attempts to poison Castro extended to the more outlandish as well. One story suggests a plot involving a specially designed seashell loaded with a potent toxin. The CIA agents believed Castro might be tempted to pick up the shell while on the beach, leading to his unexpected end. However, the execution of these plans often fell short, plagued by miscommunication and unforeseen complications. In an additional twist, some of the plots utilized women as potential agents of assassination. In one operation, a beautiful woman was tasked with delivering a poisoned drink to Castro during a secret rendezvous. The CIA believed Castro's well-known charm towards women might provide the perfect opportunity to effect a hit, but this too was marked by failure. The woman chose not to go through with it, showcasing how even the most meticulously crafted schemes could unravel for unforeseen reasons. The intrigue surrounding these plots highlights a crucial aspect of the Cold War era, the psychological warfare waged between the U.S. and its adversaries. Each failed attempt was not just a setback, but also fueled Castro's perception of himself as a survivor, reinforcing his revolutionary imagery. Castro would often reference the various assassination attempts in speeches, turning them into a narrative that enhanced his status in both Cuba and across the developing world as a leader who persevered against imperialist forces. Castro's eventual longevity as a leader serves as a testament to how deeply he ingrained himself in the consciousness of the Cuban people and the broader geopolitical landscape. It illuminated the broader struggle between ideologies during the Cold War, where both humor and tragedy coexisted in the realm of espionage. The plots to eliminate Castro may appear like far-fetched tales, yet they provide a glimpse into the intense rivalries and desperation of the times. As history moved on, the CIA's failings in the case of Castro's assassination plots became emblematic of larger operational challenges. The agency learned that while external forces might carry out grandiose plans, the unpredictability of human behavior often holds more power than any machine or plan. Castro lived on, not just as a political figure, but as an embodiment of defiance against the superpower's attempts to erase him. The complexity of life in Cuba and the intricate gamesmanship of international politics remain pivotal topics for those wishing to delve into the Cold War. The assassination plots against Castro reveal a surreal blend of ambition, creativity, and the absurdity of espionage. These actions, though they never achieved their intended purpose, changed the nature of intelligence operations and underscored the lengths to which nations would go to protect their interests, revealing both the humor and horrors that lie within political maneuverings. Thus, the legacy of these bizarre and ultimately fruitless attempts on Castro's life continues to resonate, representing the chaotic and dramatic tapestry of history that characterizes this turbulent period. Mind control through hypnosis is a topic that has fascinated people for centuries. The idea of using hypnosis to influence thoughts and behaviors taps into the mysteries of the human mind and brings forth a blend of psychology, suggestion, and the power of altered states of consciousness. Hypnosis itself is a state of focused attention and heightened suggestibility. It's a process where an individual can become more open to suggestion, allowing for therapeutic techniques to take root more easily within the subconscious. The origins of hypnosis can be traced back to the late 18th century, when a German physician named Franz Anton Mesmer introduced the concept of animal magnetism. Mesmer suggested that there was a natural energetic transference that occurred between the healer and the patient, and he used this idea as a basis for what we now know as hypnosis. Over time, this practice evolved, and the understanding of how the mind works during hypnosis deepened. Some researchers began exploring the concept of mind control through hypnosis in conjunction with drugs. The combination of these two elements raised intriguing possibilities. Drugs have the ability to alter perception, mood, and consciousness, while hypnosis offers a unique framework for influencing thought patterns and behaviors. When used together, they create a setting where the mind might be more receptive to suggestion, or where deeper states of consciousness can be explored. Consider the case of a powerful sedative. When introduced into the body, it can bring about a relaxed state. If, during this state, a skilled practitioner guides the individual through hypnotic suggestion, the individual might be more willing to accept certain ideas or directives. This is because the brain operates differently when adjusting to the influence of both hypnosis and sedatives. The typical resistance to new thoughts or changes in behavior may diminish, Throughout history, this idea has intrigued not just researchers and psychologists, but also those in the realm of entertainment and espionage. Various movies and books have depicted characters using hypnosis as a tool for mind control. These portrayals often emphasize the darker implications of manipulating someone's will through suggestion and chemical influence. The merging of hypnosis with pharmacological agents sparks ethical discussions regarding consent, autonomy, and the nature of free will. However, it is essential to differentiate between the sensationalized version of mind control and the real-world applications of hypnosis. In clinical settings, hypnosis is often utilized for therapeutic purposes. Therapists may use hypnosis to help individuals overcome phobias, manage pain, or alter undesirable habits. The key difference lies in the intent and the setting. Therapeutic hypnosis aims to support and empower individuals rather than manipulate them against their will. While the concept of mind control through hypnosis and drugs paints a vivid picture, it is crucial to remember the limits of such practices. The human mind is complex, and while suggestibility can enhance certain experiences, it does not render a person a puppet devoid of agency. The brain's protective mechanisms and individual differences play a significant role in how receptive someone may be to hypnosis and suggestion. As research advances, scientists continue to investigate the interplay between hypnosis and pharmacology. Studies have looked at how various substances might enhance suggestibility during hypnosis, or how the mental state induced by hypnosis can influence the effects of certain drugs. There is much to learn about this fascinating intersection, which blends cognitive science, neuroscience, and psychology. In conclusion, mind control through hypnosis and drugs remains a captivating and multifaceted subject. While it evokes images of fantastical narratives, its real implications are steeped in ethical considerations and the complexities of the human mind. The interplay of suggestion, consciousness, and chemical influence highlights the power and fragility of our mental landscape. As our understanding deepens, so does the conversation about the rights and responsibilities that come with such knowledge. Thus, the journey through the realms of hypnosis and mind control invites inquiry, awareness, and careful contemplation regarding the intricate threading of human thought and behavior. Operation Chaos was a covert program initiated by the Central Intelligence Agency during the turbulent years of the Vietnam War, aimed at monitoring and infiltrating domestic anti-war movements within the United States. As the conflict escalated in Southeast Asia, significant opposition began to emerge on the home front. Many Americans, particularly students and activists, grew increasingly vocal against the war, believing it to be unjust and a tragic loss of life. In response to this growing dissent, the CIA launched Operation Chaos to gather intelligence on these movements and, if necessary, to disrupt them. The roots of Operation Chaos can be traced back to the broader context of the Cold War, a time marked by fear of subversion and radicalism. The agency was particularly concerned about the potential influence of foreign ideologies on American society. With millions of young people protesting what they believed to be an immoral conflict, the CIA felt it was imperative to understand and counteract this wave of activism that could potentially threaten U.S. interests, both domestically and overseas. The operation consisted of a vast network of surveillance and intelligence gathering, which aimed to collect information on various anti-war groups, college campuses, and even prominent figures who spoke out against the war. This was not limited to any single organization. Rather, the CIA sought to understand the landscape of dissent, which included a variety of actors from peace groups to radical organizations. Agents infiltrated these groups, collecting information on their strategies, leadership, and communications. One notable aspect of Operation Chaos was its focus on student organizations, which were at the forefront of the anti-war movement. Campuses across the nation became hotbeds for activism, with protests drawing thousands of participants. The CIA recognized that the energy and enthusiasm of young people could mobilize large numbers and create significant pressure on government policy. This awareness led to an organized effort to monitor student leaders and their activities. Surveillance methods varied, often including the use of informants or wiretaps and employing psychological tactics to counteract the influence of these groups. The CIA's activities were not without controversy. As Operation Chaos progressed, many began to question the ethical implications of such a widespread surveillance program. Critics argue that the CIA was overstepping its bounds, intruding on the freedoms of speech and assembly guaranteed by the Constitution. The line between protecting national security and infringing on civil liberties became increasingly blurred. Additionally, the lack of transparency surrounding the operation heightened concerns about government accountability during a time when public trust was already waning. To further complicate matters, the operation aimed to discredit not only the anti-war movements, but also the individuals involved in them. The CIA employed various tactics, including leaking misinformation and orchestrating campaigns that sought to undermine the credibility of protest leaders. This strategy was designed to fracture the movement from within, to sow distrust among activists, and discourage individuals from participating. By presenting a narrative that painted dissenters as radicals or threats to national stability, the CIA hoped to diminish public support for the anti-war cause. Despite its comprehensive nature, the impact of Operation Chaos on the anti-war movement was varied. While the surveillance and infiltration efforts did succeed in collecting valuable intelligence, they also sparked outrage among activists and the broader public. This backlash served to galvanize the movement, with many viewing the CIA's actions as an infringement on civil liberties. As activists rallied against what they perceived to be governmental oppression, they solidified a commitment to challenging U.S. involvement in Vietnam. As public sentiment began to shift in the late 1960s and early 1970s, the anti-war movement continued to grow, leading to large-scale demonstrations and increased national dialogue surrounding the war. The activities of Operation Chaos were often overshadowed by the very protests it aimed to suppress. In time, congressional hearings and investigative reports began to unveil the extent of the CIA's involvement in domestic surveillance. These revelations culminated in widespread scrutiny of governmental agencies, resulting in legislative reforms intended to limit the powers of the CIA and ensure greater oversight. In reflecting on Operation Chaos, it becomes clear that the program represented a fascinating intersection of national security interests and civil liberties. The agency's efforts to monitor and disrupt domestic dissent highlighted the profound fears of the era, fears that were not solely about the conflict abroad, but also about the dynamics of American society itself. The history of Operation Chaos serves as a reminder of the lengths to which governments can go in the name of security, and the enduring struggle to balance that with the fundamental rights of individuals. The legacy of this operation continues to resonate, influencing discussions around surveillance, free speech, and activism today, illustrating the challenges that arise when fear meets dissent in a democracy. In the shadows of history, there lies a unique chapter that merges the mysteries of the unknown with the pragmatic world of national security. MK-Often, a lesser-known project from the Central Intelligence Agency. The narrative surrounding MK-Often has intrigued researchers, conspiracy theorists, and historians alike as it delves into the interplay between black magic, occult practices, and espionage. MK-Often emerged during the Cold War, a time marked by intense competition between the United States and the Soviet Union. The CIA was not only focused on traditional intelligence gathering methods, but also exploring unconventional means. The idea was that if conventional warfare could be enhanced by psychological tactics, why not investigate practices that lay beyond the edge of scientific understanding? Throwing a spotlight on superstitious rituals and mystical elements, MK-Often aimed to tap into elements that could provide the U.S. with an operational edge. The project became intriguing as it evaluated the potential effectiveness of spells, rituals, and symbols that are often dismissed as mere folklore. The deployment of black magic raised eyebrows and questions among intelligence analysts. How could something considered an ancient practice hold relevance in the modern world of technology and precision weaponry? This curiosity led the agency to explore reports of supposed psychic phenomena and the influence of thoughts and intentions on physical reality. Investigators went on to analyze various cultural beliefs in magic and the occult, looking into practices such as divination, necromancy, and shamanistic rituals. For instance, they studied cultures that had long histories with these practices, believing that tapping into such traditions might yield new, unexplored avenues for espionage. Some agents attended gatherings and rituals, aiming to analyze their components and the psychological impact they might have on the human mind. An example of this exploration can be found in the analysis of rituals that involve invoking spirits. These were not just curious escapades, but serious inquiries into understanding how fear and belief might be leveraged. The agency sought to understand the psychological effects of these rituals on individuals and groups. Could a well-timed incantation, performed with the right intention, create a significant advantage in negotiation or interrogation? This question lingered in the minds of those involved in the project. In parallel, MK-Often researchers also examined the use of symbols. This included age-old symbols often associated with protection and power. The hypothesis was that these symbols could potentially influence outcomes in real-world situations or change perceptions in ways that conventional strategies could not. For example, the story of the, quote, evil eye was investigated as agents looked into how belief in its power might affect interpersonal relations in certain cultures. As the CIA delved deeper, they began to gather testimonies and accounts from individuals who claimed insight into the workings of the supernatural, attempting to discern whether there were tangible methods available that extended beyond standard operations. Through interviews, documents, and studying historical cases, the aim was to understand if any so-called magical approaches could be integrated into intelligence operations. This peculiar blend of the mystical and the methodical ran parallel to the understanding of human psychology. Some researchers posited that black magic and its techniques might unlock deeper fears and desires within individuals, thereby becoming tools to manipulate. Indeed, the capacity to understand human motivation plays a key role in any operational strategy. If elements such as black magic could tap into these instincts, the agency wanted to learn how. MK often also inspired questions about the ethical implications of using such techniques. If the CIA managed to leverage occult practices for operational success, what would it mean for the boundaries of acceptable behavior in intelligence work? These reflections prompted discussions about morality, respect for cultural practices, and the potential repercussions of crossing these unconventional lines. As research progressed, the project drew some criticism. Skeptics questioned the credibility of these methods in a world increasingly reliant on hard science and technology. Yet, within the closed walls of intelligence agencies, the value of every possible tool remained a point of interest. Ultimately, MK often represents a captivating intersection of history, culture, and the pursuit of knowledge. It invites us to reflect not only on the lengths to which agencies would go for an advantage, but also on the deeper human questions about belief, fear, and the power of the unknown. By pushing the boundaries of what is considered possible and integrating the ancient with the modern, MK often stands as a testament to humanity's enduring curiosity regarding the unseen forces that may shape our world. It reminds us that quests for power and understanding can take many forms, whether they be through technology, intellect, or the enigmatic realms of the mystical. The project serves as both a historical footnote and a lingering inquiry into what lies beyond the veil of our everyday senses. It is an exploration of the constant dance between what is rational and what is believed in the hearts and minds of people throughout history. In September 1973, Chile witnessed a pivotal moment in its history when the democratically elected government of President Salvador Allende was overthrown in a military coup led by General Augusto Pinochet. This event did not unfold in isolation. Rather, it was the result of a complex interplay of internal political struggles and external influences, particularly from the United States government and the Central Intelligence Agency, commonly known as the CIA. Throughout the early 1970s, Chile was embroiled in significant political and social turmoil. President Allende, the world's first Marxist to be elected through open elections, sought to implement extensive reforms aimed at redistributing wealth and nationalizing key industries, including copper. These reforms aimed to alleviate poverty and reduce inequality, but they also generated considerable opposition. Many sectors of Chilean society, including the business community and middle class, viewed Allende's policies with suspicion and alarm. The United States, under the leadership of President Richard Nixon, was particularly concerned about the rise of leftist movements in Latin America, fearing a domino effect that could lead other nations to adopt similar socialist policies. The CIA was directed to act against Allende's administration, perceiving his government as a direct threat to U.S. interests in the region and a potential ally of the Soviet Union during the Cold War. In 1970, after Allende's election, the CIA initiated a covert operation known as Track 2, which aimed to sabotage his government and encourage a coup d'etat. This operation included various tactics to destabilize Allende's administration, including economic pressure and psychological warfare. The United States imposed economic sanctions that contributed to the economic difficulties experienced in Chile during this period, exacerbating discontent among the Chilean populace. The CIA's involvement became more pronounced as they worked to strengthen opposition groups within Chile. This included providing financial assistance to political parties aligned against Allende and fostering military recruitment. The agency's support extended to covert operations intended to create discord and dissent, influencing the public perception of Allende's governance. By 1973, tensions reached a breaking point. The Chilean economy was in a dire state, characterized by skyrocketing inflation and severe shortages of basic goods. As discontent simmered, the military, with leaders who had been in contact with the CIA, prepared to act. Pinochet and other military leaders moved with calculated precision, choosing to strike on September 11th when they believed the opportunity was ripe. On that day, military forces surrounded the presidential palace, La Moneda. Allende, determined to resist the coup, addressed the nation in a final broadcast, vowing not to resign in the face of military aggression. The coup itself was swift and brutal, resulting in the deaths of Allende and numerous supporters, alongside countless others who were imprisoned, tortured, or disappeared in the aftermath. In the wake of the coup, Chile entered a period of military dictatorship under Pinochet, marked by repression and human rights violations. The United States government expressed tacit approval of the new regime, seeing it as a bulwark against communism in Latin America, which only deepened the complexities of U.S.-Chile relations. The role of the CIA in the Chilean coup raises profound ethical questions regarding foreign intervention in a nation's sovereignty and the extent to which external powers will go to enforce their geopolitical interests. Historians and scholars have since debated the implications of these actions, reflecting on the lessons learned about the intersection of power, ideology, and the human cost of such interventions. For Chile, the legacy of the coup and the subsequent dictatorship remains contentious, casting a long shadow over the country's political landscape and collective memory. Events of that time serve as a reminder of how swiftly democratic institutions can be undermined, and how complex the web of international relations can be when it comes to the fate of nations. As the years have passed, Chile has made significant strides toward healing and reconciliation, striving to acknowledge the past while forging a new path. The story of the CIA's involvement in the Chilean coup stands as an enduring lesson about the fragility of democracy and the critical importance of vigilance to protect and uphold democratic values in any society. In recent years, the field of interrogation has seen significant changes, particularly in terms of the ethical guidelines that govern how information can be gathered from individuals. One interesting aspect that has emerged is the use of chemical agents in interrogation scenarios. This method raises a number of important questions around morality, legality, and effectiveness, particularly when considering the boundaries between acceptable practices and those that might be construed as torture. The Technical Services Staff, TSS, plays a crucial role in exploring these methods. Their focus is on ensuring that interrogative techniques remain within legal and ethical confines, while still being effective at extracting useful information from subjects. The idea is to utilize chemicals in a way that stimulates responses without inflicting physical harm in a way that could be classified as torture. To understand this concept, we must first explore what is meant by, quote, chemical interrogation. This term refers to the administration of certain non-lethal substances that may alter a subject's physiological state. For example, a mild sedative could be employed to help an individual relax, potentially leading to a more open dialogue. In such circumstances, the aim is to facilitate communication rather than manipulate or coerce individuals against their will. The TSS is particularly interested in finding the delicate balance between effectiveness and ethics. The ethical implications of using chemicals in interrogations are substantial. The fear is that even well-intentioned practices could easily be misused or misinterpreted. Therefore, the TSS seeks methods that are not only permissible under current legal frameworks, but also align with international human rights standards. One might wonder why there is an interest in exploring these chemical techniques instead of traditional interrogation methods, which often rely on psychological strategies or physical environments. The answer lies in the potential for chemicals to enhance the efficiency of communication with subjects. Under certain circumstances, a chemical agent could help calm an anxious person or alleviate symptoms of distress, thereby creating an environment where a dialogue is more likely to occur. Consider the case of someone who is highly agitated or stressed. When individuals find themselves in such a state, their ability to think clearly may diminish, making it difficult for them to engage effectively in a conversation. In this context, administering an appropriate chemical that promotes tranquility might not only serve humanitarian purposes, but also assist in achieving more fruitful communication. By helping the individual to relax and become more amenable to dialogue, the likelihood of obtaining crucial information increases. However, this area is fraught with challenges. Ethical questions abound concerning informed consent and the potential for abuse of power. How does one ensure that a person is fully aware of what is being administered? What safeguards are in place to prevent misuse? The TSS recognizes these hazards and takes strides to implement strict regulations that ensure any chemical used is only administered when absolutely necessary, and only for the purpose of genuine communication. Moreover, research indicates that the human response to different chemicals can vary significantly from one person to another. The same chemical might cause one individual to experience relaxation while potentially having the opposite effect on someone else. This variability adds another layer of complexity to the use of chemicals and interrogation, because it requires interrogators to be well informed about the substances being used and the psychological profiles of those being interrogated. This discussion also intersects with broader cultural and legal frameworks that govern interrogation practices worldwide. Many countries have established treaties and laws aimed at preventing torture and inhumane treatment. Thus, any method that could come perilously close to those lines must be approached with extreme caution and care. The TSS is dedicated to developing methodologies that respect human dignity while still addressing the needs of various stakeholders, including national security and law enforcement agencies. As we contemplate the future of interrogation techniques, it becomes clear that the use of chemicals could play a role, but only if the ethical implications are rigorously examined and addressed. The focus must remain on transparency, accountability, and the protection of human rights throughout the entire process. Ultimately, this delicate balancing act will determine how effectively interrogation practices evolve in line with both ethical consideration and the imperatives of modern society. In conclusion, the exploration of chemical methods in interrogation, as overseen by the technical services staff, opens a fascinating dialogue about the boundaries of practice in high-stakes environments. By prioritizing ethical frameworks and maintaining strict oversight, it may be possible to utilize these methods in ways that foster communication and understanding without compromising fundamental human rights. This ongoing inquiry reflects the tension between the desire for effective information gathering and the imperative to adhere to moral and ethical standards, a theme that will continue to shape the practices of interrogation for years to come. Operation Paperclip was a secret program initiated by the United States government after World War II, aimed at recruiting German scientists, engineers, and technicians, many of whom were former members of the Nazi Party. This operation arose from the need to secure advanced technology and knowledge that could benefit the U.S. in the burgeoning Cold War against the Soviet Union. The race to develop scientific advancements was intense, and the U.S. sought to gather the expertise of those who had contributed to a range of developments during the war, particularly in rocketry, aviation, and medicine. One of the most notable figures in this program was Wernher von Braun, a talented rocket engineer who had been instrumental in developing the V-2 rocket for Nazi Germany. After the war, he was brought to the United States, where he played a crucial role in the development of the American space program. Under his leadership, the U.S. launched its first successful satellite, Explorer 1, and later developed the Saturn V rocket, which ultimately took astronauts to the moon. Von Braun's insights and innovations helped to accelerate the United States' progress in space exploration significantly. The motivations behind Operation Paperclip were multifaceted. On one hand, the U.S. government sought to leverage the knowledge of these scientists to gain an edge during the Cold War. On the other hand, American officials were well aware that the Soviet Union was also keen on acquiring this expertise. This created an urgent need for the U.S. to act quickly. The vast technological advancements secured through these former Nazi scientists had vast implications for various spheres, spanning military, aerospace, and even medicine. However, Operation Paperclip was far from a straightforward endeavor. There were ethical considerations to contend with. The involvement of many of these scientists in the Nazi regime and their roles in wartime atrocities raised serious moral questions. The U.S. government faced criticism and scrutiny regarding its decision to overlook these affiliations in pursuit of technological superiority. For example, while von Braun's engineering prowess was undeniable, his past included a connection to the use of forced labor to produce rockets, which cast a shadow over his legacy. In addition to von Braun, many other scientists contributed to a variety of fields. For instance, Wernher von Braun's colleague, Hermann Oberth, who was also involved in rocketry, significantly influenced space propulsion technology. The work of these scientists did not solely focus on military applications, but also played a role in civilian technologies. Their knowledge translated into advancements in various fields like transportation, telecommunications, and even pharmaceuticals. In this way, the impact of Operation Paperclip extended far beyond the battlefield. As these individuals adapted to life in America, they brought with them not only their scientific expertise, but also a wealth of cultural knowledge. Their integration into American society marked a peculiar intersection of history, where the repercussions of their past intertwined with their new roles in shaping the future of science and technology. It reflected the complexities tied to decisions made during wartime, when necessity often trumps moral dilemmas. Over the years, the legacy of Operation Paperclip has sparked much debate. Some view it as a necessary evil, an act driven by the exigencies of the time that allowed the U.S. to emerge as a leader in technological innovation. Others see it as a troubling reminder of how ethical considerations can be sidelined in the face of strategic interests. The revelations surrounding Operation Paperclip have also influenced how society assesses the contributions of individuals with contentious pasts. As time went on, the narrative surrounding these scientists shifted, and their stories became part of a broader examination of the intersection between science, ethics, and history. Many people now recognize the duality of their contributions. They provided invaluable advancements to society while simultaneously carrying a complex and often troubling legacy. The discussions around this program continue to resonate, reminding us that historical figures should be viewed through multiple lenses, including their contributions and the moral implications of their actions. Ultimately, Operation Paperclip stands as a significant chapter in both American history and the history of science and technology. It highlights the lengths to which nations will go to secure talent and knowledge in the face of intense geopolitical rivalries. The advances made during this time laid the groundwork for future discoveries and innovations, influencing how we navigate issues of ethics and responsibility in science and technology today. The narrative of these scientists, how they transitioned from controversial figures in a dark chapter of world history to pivotal players in a new era of exploration and innovation, serves as a powerful reminder of both the potential for human ingenuity and the moral complexities intertwined in its pursuit. Throughout the 20th century, a number of human radiation experiments were conducted in the United States and other countries, which often involved administering doses of radiation to individuals without their knowledge or consent. These experiments were designed to study the effects of radiation on the human body, particularly in the context of medical treatments, nuclear energy, and military applications. One infamous case occurred in the 1940s and 1950s, involving the Atomic Energy Commission and various institutions. Researchers sought to understand how the body reacted to radiation exposure. They believed that this knowledge was crucial for the development of safety standards and treatments. For example, in a study known as the Radiation Experiments, researchers injected patients with radioactive isotopes, often without informing them about the nature of the substances they were receiving. In another notable instance, during the late 1950s, the United States government conducted experiments in which individuals received radiation exposure under the pretense of routine medical procedures. This included procedures where researchers tracked the uptake of radioactive materials in the human body, often using vulnerable populations such as hospital patients or institutionalized individuals, who might not be fully aware of what was happening. Some of these experiments aimed to investigate the potential therapeutic uses of radiation in treating cancer. By observing how certain reactions took place, researchers aimed to develop methods that could potentially benefit cancer patients in the future. Yet, the ethical implications of such experiments, particularly regarding the consent of those involved, have led to considerable debate and ethical scrutiny. During the Cold War, the fear of nuclear fallout heightened the urgency for research on radiation exposure. In a notable series of tests known as the Green Run experiments, radioactive isotopes were intentionally released into the atmosphere to gather data on how fallout would interact with the environment and human health. This research involved collecting samples from unsuspecting residents in nearby areas, leading to possible health consequences for those populations who were unwittingly part of the study. Additionally, in the 1960s, children with disabilities were subjected to radiation treatments in what researchers believed was a beneficial therapeutic action. Some were even treated in a manner reminiscent of experimentation, with researchers documenting the effects without fully explaining risks involved to the families. Not all experiments involved administering radiation directly. Some cases saw subjects exposed to natural radioactive materials, such as radon gas. The studies aimed to measure the effects of long-term exposure, which could lead to insights into how everyday environmental radiation affects human health. This kind of experiment encountered significant ethical questions, particularly related to informed consent, as the subjects were often unaware of the true purpose of the exposure. The revelations surrounding these experiments have led to significant public outcry and demands for accountability. Investigations into the unethical practices brought to light the necessity of ethical guidelines in research, especially concerning human subjects. The legacy of these experiments triggered a series of reforms, emphasizing the importance of informed consent, ethical treatment, and moral responsibility in all scientific undertakings involving humans. In the wake of these revelations, regulations have transformed how research is conducted today. Institutional review boards are now commonplace to ensure that ethical standards are adhered to, protecting individuals from similar exploitative practices. As a society, we have gained a greater awareness of the intricate balance between the pursuit of knowledge and the respect for individual rights and dignity. In popular culture, the impacts of these human radiation experiments are echoed through literature and film, often highlighting the moral dilemmas involved in scientific progress. Such narratives serve as reminders of real events that reflect the historical struggle with ethics in science, urging the importance of transparency and accountability in research. As we move forward, the lessons learned from these experiments continue to shape discussions about trust in science, the role of ethics in research, and the necessity for vigilant oversight in studies involving human subjects. The story of human radiation experiments serves as a stark reminder that the quest for knowledge can sometimes lead to transgressions, emphasizing a collective responsibility to ensure that such experiences do not repeat in the future. During the 1950s and through the 1970s, the world witnessed a growing fascination with the mind, the processes of thought, and the potential for psychological manipulation. This era birthed numerous programs aimed at exploring the depths of human consciousness, one of which was MK-Ultra, a covert project sanctioned by the CIA. MK-Ultra focused on mind control and interrogation techniques through a variety of methods. Among these methods was the use of drugs, specifically designed to test limits of human psychology and behavior. One area of significant investigation under MK-Ultra was the testing and cataloging of various psychoactive substances. Researchers sought to understand how these drugs could alter perception, create dependency, or extract confessions from unwilling subjects. Imagine a laboratory filled with scientists, each carrying out experiments on a diverse range of substances, from LSD to amphetamines, attempting to find the perfect formula for influencing a person's thoughts and actions. Take, for instance, LSD. When it gained notoriety in the 1960s, many believed it held the key to unlocking the mind, revealing hidden thoughts and memories. Researchers discovered that when administered in controlled environments, LSD could produce profound alterations in consciousness. Subjects experienced vivid hallucinations and had their perceptions drastically altered. The researchers meticulously noted these effects, seeking to harness the drug's power in interrogation settings where traditional methods might fail. Another focus of testing were drugs like barbiturates. These central nervous system depressants were believed to induce a state of relaxation, potentially making it easier for subjects to divulge information. There were reports of using these substances to facilitate conversations, where the barrier of anxiety faded, allowing for freer speech. Yet the ethical implications surrounding these practices were virtually non-existent at the time, as the pursuit of knowledge in these areas often overshadowed concerns for individual rights and well-being. Other substances included thorazine and scopolamine, both of which were studied for their sedative and amnesic properties. Thorazine, known for its use in treating psychiatric conditions, was observed for its ability to calm and sedate individuals, potentially rendering subjects less resistant during interrogations. Scopolamine, often referred to as the, quote, truth serum, sparked intense debate in research due to its purported ability to inhibit memory formation and create compliance in subjects, fostering a belief that it could compel honesty. A significant aspect of this exploration involved administering these drugs in various combinations and doses, as researchers sought to find not only the effectiveness of each drug, but also the potential for additive or synergistic effects. They meticulously documented each trial, noting responses and side effects, continuously refining their approaches in the hope of achieving reliable outcomes. The goal was clear: to create a reliable means of eliciting information, a so-called magic bullet. Psychological tests and assessments supported the drug trials, as researchers ventured beyond the biochemical effects and into the psychological landscape. Subjects were evaluated under the influence of drugs, with their responses analyzed to gauge not only their physical reactions, but also emotional and cognitive shifts. This multidimensional approach began to unravel the complexities of human behavior in the wake of drug influence. However, as researchers pushed deeper, questions arose. What happens to a person's sense of self when subjected to these substances? Could one truly extract reliable information if the subject's mental state is so profoundly altered? These inquiries began to shape the discourse around the ethics of drug use in interrogations. Despite the excitement around the potential applications, the shadow of manipulation and control loomed large, raising ethical dilemmas that would lead to the eventual cessation of many of these practices. In the shadows of MK-Ultra, discussions about informed consent and the morality of manipulating human consciousness surfaced slowly but surely. As public awareness grew, so did scrutiny over government-sponsored programs that bordered on unethical conduct. The investigations into the psychological effects of drugs during this period would eventually lead to greater awareness of human rights and research ethics. Looking back, it becomes clear that the MK-Ultra Project opened doors to understanding both the power and risks of psychoactive substances. While it aimed to furnish powerful interrogation techniques, it inadvertently ignited broader conversations about autonomy, consent, and the ethical treatment of individuals in research. These foundational explorations have informed more current practices in psychology, psychiatry, and drug research, reminding us that with great power comes great responsibility. The legacy of MK-Ultra and the drug trials that took place within its framework echo through the ages, a testament to humanity's never-ending quest for knowledge intertwined with a cautionary tale of overreach. As we reflect on these developments, it is essential to remember that the complexity of the human mind deserves respect and understanding, not mere experimentation or manipulation. Through diligent examination and ethical responsibility, we can continue to explore the vast landscape of human consciousness while honoring the integrity of those who participate in such inquiries. The Phoenix program was a covert operation conducted during the Vietnam War by the United States and its South Vietnamese allies. Launched in the late 1960s, this program aimed to undermine the Viet Cong, the communist-led insurgency fighting against the South Vietnamese government. The Phoenix program is notable for its controversial methods and impact on the course of the conflict. At its core, the Phoenix program set out to identify and neutralize suspected Viet Cong operatives and their supporters. The term neutralize in this context often meant assassination, leading to significant moral and ethical questions about the tactics employed. The program involved a broad array of intelligence gathering techniques, including the use of informants, surveillance, and community outreach to extract information on Viet Cong members. The rationale behind the program was straightforward, at least from the perspective of its orchestrators. By targeting key figures within the Viet Cong network, the belief was that it would disrupt their operations and diminish their influence in the rural areas of South Vietnam. The Phoenix program aimed to create a climate of fear among Viet Cong sympathizers, essentially discouraging support for the insurgency through targeted violence. The program was implemented with varying degrees of success and failure. In some instances, the intelligence was inaccurate, leading to the targeting of innocent civilians who were merely perceived as enemies. This created a backlash, where the local population became increasingly resentful of both the program and the American presence in Vietnam. Accounts from those who lived through this period highlight a deep mistrust of the government and U.S. forces, suggesting that the program sometimes alienated the very people it sought to protect. One of the elements that set the Phoenix program apart from traditional military operations was its focus on psychological operations. The idea was to eliminate not just individuals, but to instill a pervasive sense of fear within communities allied with or supportive of the Viet Cong. This broader strategy included not only assassination, but also the incarceration and torture of suspected operatives, which further fueled anti-American sentiment. Critics of the Phoenix program have argued that it exemplified a severe moral failing in U.S. military policy during the Vietnam War. The human cost of the program was staggering, with estimates of thousands of deaths, many of which were civilians caught in the crossfire. Additionally, the program's operatives operated with a level of autonomy that often resulted in gross violations of human rights. Despite these grim realities, proponents of the Phoenix program contended that it was necessary as part of the overall strategy to win the war. They argued that the targeted elimination of Viet Cong leaders was essential to destabilizing the movement and ultimately achieving a military advantage. However, as the war dragged on and public sentiment shifted in the United States, the moral implications of such tactics began to weigh heavily on both military personnel involved and the American public at large. The legacy of the Phoenix program is complex and remains a subject of intense debate. On one hand, it represents a calculated, if flawed, approach to counterinsurgency in a brutal war. On the other, it serves as a stark reminder of the ethical dilemmas faced by governments in wartime, particularly the balance between military objectives and humanitarian considerations. In popular culture, the Phoenix program has been referenced and critiqued in various media, further embedding its narrative into the collective memory of the Vietnam War. Films, documentaries, and literature wrestle with the implications of the program, examining its effectiveness and the human cost involved. These representations often provoke discussions about the nature of warfare, the limits of state power, and the consequences of actions taken in the name of security. As we reflect on the Phoenix program today, it urges consideration of how military operations are conducted and the importance of accountability in the realm of national security. The lessons drawn from this chapter of history remain relevant, prompting dialogue about ethics, strategy, and the definition of victory within modern conflicts. It encourages a deeper understanding of the impacts of war, not just on soldiers, but on the societies in which they exist. The conversation surrounding the Phoenix program serves as a poignant reminder of the human stories entwined within military campaigns and the need for a conscientious approach to any strategies implemented in times of conflict. The program's ramifications continue to resonate, allowing for an assessment of past actions while laying groundwork for future decisions related to peace, stability, and justice in conflict zones around the globe. Throughout history, the intersection of intelligence agencies and psychiatric care has unveiled a complex and often unsettling narrative. Psychiatric hospitals, designed to treat and heal individuals, have occasionally been embroiled in stories that reveal darker layers of experimentation and manipulation. One of the more intriguing and controversial aspects of this narrative involves CIA operatives who posed as patients to test responses to psychiatric treatments, all without the consent of those involved. At the heart of this matter is the infamous MK-Ultra program, initiated by the CIA during the Cold War. The aim of this program was to investigate mind control and manipulation techniques that could be used in various contexts, including interrogating enemy spies and altering behavior. In pursuit of these goals, operatives engaged in a range of experiments, some of which included posing as patients in psychiatric institutions. These scenarios allowed agents to observe and study various therapeutic responses and medications, often in secretive and ethically questionable ways. Imagine a situation where an operative walks through the doors of a psychiatric hospital, blending in with other patients. Equipped with a background story, they present themselves as someone in need of help. The ambiance is often heavy with a mix of hope and despair as genuine patients seek refuge in treatments. The operative, however, has a different agenda. Instead of seeking healing, they are gathering data, observing how medical staff administer therapies, and how patients respond to various medications. This type of clandestine operation poses serious ethical questions. In a typical psychiatric setting, consent is paramount. Patients are supposed to be informed about their treatment and the processes they will undergo. However, when agents infiltrate these environments without disclosure, the basic tenets of medical ethics are fundamentally compromised. The narratives of individuals who genuinely require assistance become entangled with the agendas of those performing covert operations. In some instances, these agents were subjected to the same treatments as legitimate patients. They may have undergone experimental therapies, including the administration of potent psychoactive drugs, simply to observe their effects. Consider, for example, the administration of LSD or other hallucinogens during the 1960s. Such substances were often used without informed consent, resulting in deeply transformative, yet potentially damaging experiences. An operative might find themselves navigating altered states of consciousness, not for personal healing, but for the sake of gathering intelligence on the effects of these substances on the human psyche. The wider implications of these actions extend beyond the walls of the hospitals. For families of patients and the general public, these incidents raise concerns about the integrity of psychiatric care. How can patients trust a system when there's a risk that those delivering care may have ulterior motives? Real patients seeking genuine help may feel vulnerable under the shadow of such deceit. The sense of safety that psychiatric settings typically provide can be eroded, making it challenging for individuals to engage honestly in their treatment. Interestingly, These secretive operations sometimes cross the boundaries of not just ethics but also legality. As stories began to emerge about these manipulative practices, there was an inevitable backlash. Investigations into the CIA's actions led to widespread outrage and a call for accountability. Documentaries, books, and articles explored how these actions not only violated the rights of individuals, but also illustrated a grave misunderstanding of psychiatric treatment and human vulnerability. The historical context of these actions paints a vivid picture of a time when the lines between right and wrong became blurred in the pursuit of national security. The stories of those involved, both operatives and genuine patients, highlight a tragic irony. In seeking to understand the complexities of the human mind, these agents often inflicted additional trauma upon individuals who were already struggling with their realities. It's important to remember that the field of psychiatry has evolved significantly since these events occurred. Today, ethical oversight and consent are paramount. Rigorous guidelines seek to protect vulnerable populations, ensuring that treatment relies on trust and respect. While the past serves as a cautionary tale, it also underscores the importance of transparency and integrity in the healing professions. As we reflect on these incidents, we find ourselves confronted with deep questions about power, consent, and the human experience. The narrative of CIA operatives in psychiatric hospitals serves as a reminder of the potential for manipulation within systems designed to care for those in need. It implores us to consider the ethical dimensions of treatment and the importance of protecting the rights and dignity of individuals, regardless of the circumstances they find themselves in. In understanding these complex layers of history, we can foster a more compassionate and ethical approach to mental health, one that honors the intrinsic value of every individual, regardless of their circumstances. In the realm of secret government experiments, few are as intriguing and controversial as CIA Subproject 68, a clandestine operation intertwined with the notorious MK-Ultra program. The MK-Ultra Project, primarily focused on the study of mind control and the effects of various substances and methods on human consciousness, encompassed numerous subprojects, including Subproject 68. This particular subproject specifically examined the effects of extreme sensory deprivation and the concept of psychic driving. To truly understand the implications of Subproject 68, one must first grasp the significance of sensory deprivation. Imagine being suspended in a dark, soundproof chamber where every sensation is minimized and the outside world fades into nothingness. This state can evoke a range of psychological effects, often unpredictable and profound. The purpose of such experiments was to explore the mind's boundaries, to understand how individuals respond when stripped of normal sensory inputs. As part of Subproject 68, researchers subjected participants to various methods of sensory deprivation. One of the most common techniques involved the use of isolation chambers or tanks. These environments limited auditory and visual stimuli to the extent that even the faintest sounds or light were eliminated. In these chambers, individuals often experienced altered states of consciousness, leading to unusual psychological phenomena. Some participants reported vivid hallucinations, while others experienced introspection at a level previously unknown to them. The extreme isolation fostered a unique internal landscape. For some, it sparked creativity, while for others, it manifested as anxiety or disorientation. These varied reactions provided significant insights into the human psyche and its resilience, as well as its vulnerabilities. Alongside sensory deprivation was the concept of psychic driving, a controversial technique aimed at reshaping thoughts and behavior. Researchers sought to investigate whether repeated audio messages could influence an individual's thoughts or beliefs. In practice, this meant subjecting participants to repetitive phrases or ideas while in a vulnerable state of mind, often after prolonged periods of sensory deprivation. The intention was to see if the mind could be redirected or conditioned to embrace new perspectives or behavior patterns. For example, a subject might listen to a recorded message stating certain affirmations or ideologies repeatedly. The hope was that, with sufficient repetition, these messages would penetrate the unconscious mind and promote enduring change in the individual's beliefs or behaviors. This concept, however, raised ethical concerns, as it could be perceived as a form of psychological manipulation far beyond conventional therapeutic practices. The findings from Subproject 68 and the broader MK-Ultra project have sparked debates that echo through psychology and neuroscience today. At its core, the exploration of human consciousness and the effects of isolation and suggestion challenge our understanding of free will, autonomy, and the ethics of psychological experimentation. Individuals' accounts from the experiments reveal a tapestry of experiences that are as enlightening as they are unsettling. Some participants described moments of clarity and profound self-discovery during their time in sensory deprivation chambers, suggesting the potential for therapeutic applications. Others, however, painted a starkly different picture, characterized by anxiety and fear, raising questions about the safety and morality of such experiments. In contemporary discussions, the legacy of Subproject 68 serves as a reminder of the delicate balance between the pursuit of knowledge and the ethical considerations that govern scientific research. The quest to unlock the mysteries of the human mind is fraught with challenges, especially when it involves manipulating perception or consciousness. As we reflect on the exploration of sensory deprivation and psychic driving, we are left with profound questions. How much can we influence the mind, and at what cost? What does it truly mean to lose oneself in introspection? And how do we navigate the fine line between exploration and exploitation? The inquiries ignited by Subproject 68 continue to resonate, urging us to consider the implications of our pursuit of knowledge, especially when it pertains to the workings of the mind. Ultimately, the legacy of CIA Subproject 68 serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us to tread thoughtfully into the intricacies of human consciousness. As we continue to explore the uncharted territories of the mind, we must weigh the potential for discovery against the important ethical considerations that arise from it, fostering a future where curiosity and respect for the individual intertwine in our quest for understanding. In a world where the boundaries of perception and reality blend, these revelations become essential for our continued exploration of the profound complexities of our shared human experience. Project Slammer is a fascinating initiative focused on understanding the complex behaviors and psychological stresses experienced by spies during prolonged periods of imprisonment. Spies, often operating in high-stakes environments, demonstrate unique patterns of thought and behavior, particularly when faced with the pressures of confinement. By investigating these patterns, researchers aim to shed light on the mental and emotional challenges that arise in extreme situations. The program is built on the premise that the long duration of imprisonment can lead to significant psychological changes. Through extensive research, Project Slammer seeks to decode how isolation, uncertainty, and deprivation affect the mind. It looks into various aspects of psychological stress, including anxiety, depression, and coping mechanisms, which can differ widely among individuals based on their experiences and personalities. To gather comprehensive data, Project Slammer employs a multifaceted approach. It utilizes interviews, psychological assessments, and observational studies of subjects who have undergone similar experiences. The project also taps into existing literature on captivity and the psychological impacts of imprisonment. By synthesizing various sources of information, researchers can better understand the behavioral transformations that occur in spies during their time in confinement. One key focus of the project is the relationship between stress and decision-making. Spies frequently make critical choices under pressure, and the prolonged stress of imprisonment may alter their judgment. Project Slammer examines how prolonged isolation affects these decision-making processes, revealing insights into not only the mental resilience of spies, but also their vulnerabilities. Another aspect of the program looks into social interactions, even within the confines of imprisonment. Spies, like all humans, have an intrinsic need for social connection. The program observes how these individuals adapt their communication and relationships with fellow prisoners, guards, or even through imagined conversations with outside influences. This includes the use of storytelling as a coping mechanism, helping to maintain a sense of identity and humanity amidst challenging circumstances. Moreover, Project Slammer aims to improve support systems for individuals who have endured long-term captivity. Understanding the psychological scars left by such experiences can lead to better mental health resources and rehabilitation strategies. By identifying the specific challenges spies face, Project Slammer hopes to create more effective interventions tailored to their needs. Cultural factors also play a crucial role in this study. Different societies view espionage through various lenses, which can influence how spies cope with their circumstances. The project examines these cultural narratives and their effects on psychological well-being, exploring how identity, nationality, and cultural expectations shape the experiences of individuals in captivity. In addition, the program looks at the role of resilience. Interestingly, some individuals demonstrate a remarkable ability to adapt and thrive despite dire conditions. Project Slammer investigates the factors that contribute to this resilience, seeking to pinpoint the psychological traits that enable certain individuals to maintain their mental health over time. Through careful analysis and interpretation of collected data, Project Slammer aspires to contribute not just to the field of espionage studies, but also to a broader understanding of human psychology. Its findings could extend beyond the realm of spies, offering valuable insights applicable to various situations involving stress and social isolation. The overarching goal of Project Slammer is to advance knowledge and elevate awareness about the mental health challenges faced by individuals in extreme situations. By equipping society with a deeper understanding of these experiences, the initiative hopes to foster empathy and support for those who have endured such trials. In conclusion, Project Slammer stands as an important research initiative that delves into the intricate mental and emotional complexities of spies during long-term imprisonment. By analyzing behaviors, psychological stressors, and cultural influences, the project seeks to bring light to the often hidden struggles of individuals subjected to extreme confinement. With rigorous research and a compassionate approach, Project Slammer aims to make significant contributions to our understanding of resilience, coping, and the human experience in the face of adversity. Throughout history, there have been numerous reports of unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, sparking curiosity and speculation about what lies beyond our planet. One of the more intriguing chapters in the story of UFOs belongs to the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, especially during the tumultuous years of the Cold War. The Cold War was a period marked by heightened political tension, primarily between the United States and the Soviet Union. This era not only influenced global politics, but also shaped discourse surrounding UFO sightings. The CIA, as the nation's primary intelligence agency, paid close attention to any anomalies in the skies that could potentially threaten national security. In the environment of the Cold War, any strange sightings were taken quite seriously, as they could indicate advanced technology from adversaries. The CIA began collecting reports of UFO sightings from various sources, including military personnel, civilians, and scientific communities. These reports varied widely, from mysterious lights in the night sky to more defined shapes. The agency was particularly interested in anything that appeared to defy the known laws of aerodynamics or exhibited behaviors not typical of conventional aircraft. One of the most famous cases during this time was the incident known as the Washington UFO sightings in July 1952. Witnesses, including military radar operators and airline pilots, reported seeing strange objects hovering in the skies over Washington, D.C. The government took these sightings seriously, and the events led to a flurry of activity within the CIA and the Air Force. Although many explanations were given, including atmospheric phenomena and misidentified aircraft, the sheer volume of reports kept the mystery alive. As the CIA delved deeper into its investigation of UFO sightings, it became evident that the agency sometimes engaged in a thorough exploration of potential explanations. While many reports were seemingly grounded in reality, others were more dubious. There are indications that some information was fabricated or exaggerated, either to throw off foreign adversaries or to obscure the capabilities of American technology. The line between genuine inquiry and deception became blurred as intelligence agencies sought to protect national interests. Additionally, the CIA occasionally funded scientific research related to UFOs, which added another layer of complexity. This research often aimed to assess whether any UFO sightings could lead to breakthroughs in technology or indicate advances from rival nations. For instance, the agency conducted studies that involved the analysis of materials purportedly recovered from supposed UFO crash sites. These efforts reflected the intense desire for knowledge about possible advanced technologies, especially in a climate of competition. Amidst all the data collection and investigation, the CIA was also privy to the public's fascination with UFOs. The agency recognized that UFO phenomena captured the public imagination, leading to widespread speculation and conspiracy theories. As such, the CIA sometimes engaged in disinformation campaigns, intentionally misleading the public or downplaying certain events. This created a complex relationship between the agency and the ongoing cultural narrative surrounding UFOs, as the line between fact and fiction frequently blurred. In the years following the Cold War, much of the documentation related to UFO sightings and investigations eventually entered the public domain. With the release of these declassified files, researchers and enthusiasts alike have poured over the documents, seeking insight into the mysteries that have captivated generations. The collection of information, the sometimes dubious analytics, and the blend of genuine curiosity and manufactured narratives provide a fascinating glimpse into not just UFOs, but also the intricacies of intelligence work during a pivotal era. Even now, Decades later, interest in UFOs remains strong. The CIA's involvement adds a layer of intrigue, inviting people to explore the stories behind the stories. The films, books, and documentaries fueled by these events highlight how deeply the question of what exists beyond our understanding continues to resonate. As we look back on this chapter of history, one can't help but wonder about the evidence hidden in plain sight, the narrative spun, and the motivations behind keeping certain details in the shadows. Each sighting, each document unearthed, evokes questions not only about what we might have seen flying above us, but also about the very nature of secrecy, truth, and the human imagination's endless capacity for wonder. The CIA's UFO files serve as a reminder of how intertwined national security, human curiosity, and the quest for knowledge truly are. Whether we deem these sightings as credible indicators of extraterrestrial life or simply misidentified objects, the legacy of the CIA's investigations continues to inspire exploration into the unknown, highlighting our intrinsic desire to understand the mysteries that lie beyond our earthly confines. Each tale of a UFO sighting is not only a story of potential visitors from afar, but also a reflection of our hopes, fears, and endless search for answers in a vast universe. The Manhattan Engineer District, often referred to simply as the Manhattan Project, was a massive, secretive endeavor during World War II aimed at developing nuclear weapons. This ambitious project brought together some of the greatest scientific minds of the time and was marked by immense ambition, urgency, and an air of secrecy that cloaked its operations. At the onset of the war, the scientific community began to realize the potential of nuclear fission, the process by which the nucleus of an atom splits into lighter nuclei, releasing large amounts of energy. Prominent physicists like Albert Einstein and Leo Szilard were among the first to alert the U.S. government to the possibility of creating devastating bombs using this technology. The threat posed by Nazi Germany, particularly with the prospect of them developing their own atomic bomb, galvanized the U.S. to initiate a concerted research effort. In 1942, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers took charge of this undertaking, officially designating it the Manhattan Engineer District. The program operated under incredible secrecy, with locations scattered across the United States, including Los Alamos, New Mexico, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and Hanford, Washington. Each site specialized in different aspects of the project, such as uranium enrichment, bomb design, and plutonium production. Los Alamos was perhaps the most famous of these sites, where scientists toiled day and night to develop the first atomic bomb. Physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer became the lead scientist there, overseeing an extraordinary team that included luminaries like Richard Feynman and Niels Bohr. Together, they worked on what would ultimately become two types of bombs, one using uranium-235 and the other utilizing plutonium-239. The work wasn't without its challenges. Scientific barriers needed to be overcome, as uranium had to be separated from its ore and then enriched to create a sufficient quantity for a bomb. The process was complex and required innovative engineering solutions, which involved massive facilities and unconventional methods like gas diffusion and electromagnetic separation. The urgency of the project pushed these scientists and engineers to their limits, leading to countless hours of experimentation and collaboration. On August 6 and August 9, 1945, the culmination of this enormous effort became tragically apparent when two atomic bombs were dropped on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The immediate impact was catastrophic, resulting in immense loss of life and destruction. But the political landscape shifted as well. These bombings marked a dramatic conclusion to World War II and ushered in a new era defined by nuclear capabilities. In the years following the war, the nuclear research initiated by the Manhattan Project continued to have lasting consequences. The implications of atomic energy were far-reaching, leading to new scientific advancements, the establishment of nuclear energy as a power source, and the onset of the Cold War. The newfound atomic capabilities invited an era of tension and competition between world superpowers, most notably the United States and the Soviet Union. Interestingly, some aspects of the Manhattan Project were later intertwined with the activities of the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA. As the United States navigated the complexities of the post-war world, the application of nuclear technology was not confined to military use. The CIA recognized the potential for atomic knowledge in intelligence and strategic operations. The agency began to explore avenues for employing nuclear technology in espionage and covert activities, ranging from reconnaissance to considerations of nuclear deterrence. The legacy of the Manhattan Project is a mixed one. On one hand, it represents the monumental achievements of science and collaboration under pressing circumstances. On the other, it brings forth ethical questions and discussions about warfare, humanity, and the responsibility that comes with wielding such power. The project essentially opened a Pandora's box, leading to both scientific breakthroughs and moral dilemmas that continue to resonate in contemporary discussions surrounding nuclear energy and weapons. In popular culture, the Manhattan Project has been depicted in films, books, and documentaries, further illustrating the intriguing story of how a collective of brilliant minds changed the world forever. Its influence persists not only in the realm of military and defense, but also in various aspects of our everyday lives, from energy policies to international relations. In summary, the Manhattan Engineer District was not just an engineering project. It was a pivotal moment in history that reshaped warfare and global politics in ways that still matter today. The stories of the scientists, the technology they developed, and the post-war implications paint a rich tapestry of innovation, secrecy, and the quest for power in a changing world. It stands as a testament to human ingenuity and the complexities that accompany remarkable achievements. These events have left indelible marks on science and society, shaping contemporary perspectives on technology's role in our lives. The Manhattan Project's echoes are felt even now, reminding us of the delicate balance between scientific progress and ethical responsibility. Operation Mockingbird was a covert effort carried out during the Cold War by the Central Intelligence Agency, commonly known as the CIA. The primary aim of this operation was to influence media organizations and journalists to promote narratives favorable to American interests, while casting negative portrayals of the Soviet Union and its allies. This operation emerged in the context of the intense geopolitical competition between the United States and the Soviet Union, where controlling the flow of information was seen as crucial in the battle for hearts and minds, both domestically and internationally. The origins of Operation Mockingbird can be traced back to the late 1940s and early 1950s, a period characterized by the escalating tensions of the Cold War. The CIA recognized that media was a powerful tool in shaping public perception and opinion. They sought to build a network of journalists and editors who could serve as unknowing or willing allies, creating a pro-American narrative and disrupting support for communism. This was not merely about intelligence gathering. It also involved direct manipulation of the news to serve the political objectives of the United States. One intriguing aspect of Operation Mockingbird was the CIA's recruitment of key figures in the media. Many prominent journalists from major publications, including Newsweek and the New York Times, were either recruited directly or influenced through financial incentives or relationships. This created an environment where news reporting could be subtly swayed or directly altered to align with U.S. interests. The agency sought to ensure that stories highlighting Soviet unrest, human rights violations, and other negative aspects were featured prominently, while achievements and positive developments in the West were publicized to counter negative narratives. The operation extended beyond American shores. There was specific interest in European media, where American officials felt that Soviet influence was particularly strong. The CIA funded various initiatives, providing grants to organizations that would disseminate materials that aligned with American strategies. They recognized that controlling the narrative in Europe was crucial. Anti-American sentiment could undermine U.S. influence and support for its policies. This was particularly vital in countries where communist parties had substantial support. The mechanisms through which Operation Mockingbird worked were diverse. For instance, some journalists were unknowingly used as conduits for propaganda, crafting pieces that included CIA-favored content without realizing the source's intent. In other cases, information was fabricated or selectively presented, painting a bright picture of American ideals and the supposed failures of communism. The CIA even got involved in creating or enhancing certain publications that would support its goals. As with many covert operations, the methods were often devious. This was not just about friendly persuasion, it also included tactics that bordered on subterfuge. In some instances, the CIA discredited those journalists or media outlets that were critical of American policies, or friendly toward Soviet perspectives, portraying them as unreliable or biased. This manipulation of media was a means to maintain a certain narrative dominance. Over time, public awareness about Operation Mockingbird grew, drawing scrutiny to the ethics and integrity of journalistic practices. As revelations emerged about the extent of the CIA's influence over the press, many journalists began to question their role and complicity in disseminating information that was not entirely independent. While this prompted calls for greater transparency, it also led to a crisis of trust among the public regarding what constituted credible journalism. The legacy of Operation Mockingbird is significant, shaping discussions about media bias and the importance of independent journalism. In a world where information is increasingly manipulated, the lessons learned from this operation highlight the delicate balance between information, power, and ethics. It raises critical questions about accountability, as well as the ongoing interactions between state and media, challenging us to reflect on the nature of news and the responsibilities of those who report it. Today, as we navigate an era of social media and instantaneous information dissemination, the principles behind Operation Mockingbird resonate. The rapid spread of misinformation can sway public opinion in ways similar to the strategies employed during the Cold War. Awareness of these influences invites a critical examination of how stories are shaped and the motivations behind them. In conclusion, Operation Mockingbird serves as a powerful reminder of the intricate relationship between intelligence, media, and public perception. It emphasizes the need for vigilance in discerning the origins of the information we consume and an understanding of how narratives are constructed. This historical episode continues to provide insights into the nature of power and its ability to shape reality through the lens of information, setting an essential precedent for both media literacy and our democratic engagement. The Bluebird Project, a lesser-known yet intriguing chapter in the history of covert government programs, emerged in the early 1950s. It was part of a larger initiative known as MK-Ultra, which aimed to explore and develop methods of mind control, interrogation, and psychological manipulation. The name Bluebird is often associated with the project, reflecting its ambition to foster a profound understanding of human behavior and cognition. At its core, the Bluebird Project was driven by a desire to enhance the existing methods of extracting information from individuals, particularly those considered to be challenging subjects, such as prisoners of war or spies. The Cold War era was marked by an intense atmosphere of secrecy, competition, and mistrust between foreign powers. The United States government, concerned about the effectiveness of its intelligence-gathering techniques, sought innovative solutions that went beyond traditional interrogation methods. One significant aspect of the Bluebird Project involved the exploration of various drugs, particularly psychedelics. Researchers experimented with substances like LSD, believing that these compounds might unlock hidden memories or facilitate emotional vulnerability. The idea was that, under the influence of these substances, individuals might be more willing to divulge information or confront their own fears. This line of thought led to extensive testing, with participants sometimes unaware of the true nature of the experiments being conducted on them. In addition to pharmacological approaches, the Bluebird Project also delved into psychological techniques, leveraging principles from behaviorism and psychodynamic theories. Researchers were particularly interested in understanding how trauma and stress impacted an individual's ability to withstand interrogation. They studied various methods aimed at breaking down psychological resistance, with the hope of discovering a surefire way to elicit the desired information. One of the more notorious strategies involved the use of sensory deprivation. By isolating individuals from external stimuli, removing light, sound, and touch, researchers believed they could induce a psychological state conducive to compliance. This technique raised ethical questions, particularly about the potential for long-lasting psychological harm. Nevertheless, the project pushed the boundaries of accepted practices at the time, highlighting the lengths to which agencies might go in pursuit of intelligence gathering. Around the same period, the repercussions of these experimenting methods were significant. Cases of unethical treatment of subjects surfaced, prompting later inquiries into the ethical implications of intelligence programs. As revelations about MK-Ultra and Bluebird emerged, the government faced public backlash regarding the morality of their methods. Yet, for a while, the fascination with the psychological underpinnings of human behavior and conditioning stood at the forefront of intelligence efforts. The Bluebird Project illustrates an era defined by innovation, desperation, and ethical ambiguity. Even though it was one of many programs that explored these dark corridors of psychological manipulation, it reflects broader societal questions about the balance between security and personal rights. The consequences of its attempts to enhance interrogation methods reverberate into contemporary discussions surrounding privacy, consent, and the methods used to extract information. Despite its controversial nature, the Bluebird Project undeniably contributed to the corpus of knowledge surrounding psychological practices. Some of the research methodologies, albeit shrouded in dark intentions, have entered into more benign realms today, influencing fields such as psychology and psychiatry. The journey from covert experimentation to ethical scientific exploration marks a significant evolution in our understanding of the human psyche. While many aspects of the Bluebird Project remain shrouded in secrecy, it leaves a lasting impression as a point of reference in the tales of intelligence history. This chapter serves as a reminder of the complex interplay between ambition and ethics, and how the quest for knowledge can sometimes lead us down precarious paths. It offers a perspective on the human experience, underscoring the importance of considering the moral implications of our pursuits, as well as the psychological resilience and vulnerability that define us as individuals. In today's world, the lessons learned from such projects can still resonate. They challenge us to reflect on how we approach knowledge and information, care for one another, and respect the boundaries of individual autonomy. The Bluebird Project stands not just as a relic of a bygone era, it serves as a cautionary tale about the intersection of scientific curiosity and human compassion, reminding us that our understanding of ourselves and others must always be guided by respect and ethical considerations. In the realm of covert operations, few projects have sparked as much intrigue and debate as Operation Popeye, a secret initiative conducted by the Central Intelligence Agency in collaboration with the United States Air Force during the Vietnam War. This operation is a fascinating example of how science and military strategy can intersect with profound consequences for both nature and humanity. Operation Popeye was initiated in the late 1960s and aimed to influence the weather over specific regions of Vietnam, particularly during the critical monsoon seasons. The primary goal was to extend the monsoon period by inducing artificial rainfall through cloud seeding. Cloud seeding is a weather modification technique that involves dispersing substances into the atmosphere, which act as cloud condensation or ice nuclei, thereby enhancing precipitation. The concept of cloud seeding can be traced back to advances in meteorology and chemistry. Scientists discovered that certain compounds, like silver iodide, could encourage cloud droplets to combine and grow larger, eventually falling as rain. Though the principle itself is relatively straightforward, the application in a war scenario raised a myriad of ethical and environmental questions. Operation Popeye's execution began with the deployment of aircraft equipped to deliver these cloud seeding agents during the monsoon season. The mission's intention was to disrupt supply routes for North Vietnamese forces by creating mud and flooding, ultimately making it more difficult for them to transport goods and troops. By extending the rainy season, the U.S. military aimed to impose significant logistical challenges on the enemy. The operation was initially shrouded in secrecy, and its scale was considerable. Although cloud seeding had been tested for purposes like increasing rainfall in agriculture or enhancing water supplies, using it as a weapon of war presented a unique dilemma. Was it right to manipulate the weather for military advantage? This question has sparked intense discussions regarding the moral implications of such tactics. Furthermore, the environmental consequences of Operation Popeye were also significant. Altering weather patterns could have downstream effects that neither the military nor the scientists involved fully understood at the time. Some studies suggested that an unintended consequence of increased rainfall could lead to erosion and flooding, which could harm local ecosystems and agriculture, impacting innocent civilians caught in the fray of war. As the operation unfolded, its implications extended beyond the battlefield. It garnered attention from the public and spurred conversations about environmental warfare. This led to greater scrutiny and a push for regulations regarding weather manipulation in conflict. The controversy surrounding Operation Popeye was part of a broader movement that eventually contributed to international treaties and norms aimed at limiting the use of environmental modification techniques in warfare. In 1972, the United Nations adopted the Environmental Modification Convention, which specifically prohibited the military or any other hostile use of environmental modification techniques. This agreement underscored the global recognition of the need to protect the environment, even amid the chaos of war. The legacy of Operation Popeye ultimately contributed to a greater understanding of the intersection between military operations and environmental stewardship. Reflecting on Operation Popeye today invites contemplation about technology, ethics, and the extent to which humanity should interfere with natural processes. It presents an example of how innovations intended for good can be co-opted for destructive purposes. The operation serves as a reminder of our interconnectedness with the environment and the responsibility we bear in maintaining a balance between progress and preservation. Operation Popeye is often cited in discussions about weather modification and how military strategies can evolve in response to technological advancements. It exemplifies the creative and sometimes controversial ways in which nations seek to gain an upper hand during conflicts. Throughout history, many wartime strategies have transformed the landscape of combat, and operations like Popeye challenge us to consider the potential consequences of these choices. The narrative of Operation Popeye continues to resonate in conversations about climate change, sustainable practices, and the moral dilemmas associated with scientific exploration. As we look toward the future, it becomes essential to learn from the past and consider not only the immediate impacts of our actions, but also the far-reaching effects they may have on the planet and on generations to come. In conclusion, the story of Operation Popeye serves as a powerful case study of how the intersection of military action and environmental manipulation can lead to unforeseen consequences. It invites us to think critically about the role of science in warfare, the ethics of intervention, and the importance of treating our planet with care. The balance we strike between using technology for progress and respecting the natural world will shape the direction of our future endeavors, guiding us to make wiser decisions for the betterment of all. The Tuskagee syphilis study stands as a haunting example of unethical medical experimentation in the history of the United States. Conducted by the U.S. Public Health Service from 1932 to 1972, it involved the observation of untreated syphilis in African American men in Alabama. The study aimed to understand the natural progression of the disease, but it did so in a manner that stripped individuals of their privacy and dignity. The study began with the recruitment of 600 African American men, 399 of whom had syphilis, and 201 who did not. Participants were told they were being treated for bad blood, a term that encompassed various ailments, including syphilis, anemia, and fatigue. However, the men were not informed of their actual diagnosis. Instead of offering them effective treatment, researchers opted to observe the disease's progression without intervention. This lack of transparency and care exemplifies a severe violation of ethical standards in medical research. As the years passed, advancements in medicine brought effective treatments for syphilis, particularly penicillin, which became widespread in the early 1940s. However, the men in the Tuskagee study were denied this treatment. They were not informed of these medical breakthroughs, a decision rooted in the study's goal of gathering data rather than prioritizing health. The researchers chose to maintain their control over the subjects, failing to provide them with necessary medical care even when it was readily available. The deception continued for decades. Even as public health guidelines evolved and ethical standards for human research were established, the study persisted without intervention. The participants, many of whom lived in poverty and faced systemic barriers to health care, continued to endure the ravages of untreated syphilis. Their suffering was all but ignored for the sake of research data. This situation raises profound ethical questions about responsibility, consent, and humanity in the pursuit of knowledge. In 1972, the Tuskagee syphilis study was finally exposed to the public, igniting outrage and leading to immediate governmental intervention. It prompted a significant reevaluation of ethical standards in research, resulting in the establishment of guidelines that require informed consent and ethical treatment for all study participants. The legacy of this study serves as a crucial reminder of how easily human subjects can become data points in the name of science. The Tuskagee study is not an isolated incident, but part of a broader context of unethical governmental and institutional practices. While it was not a covert operation like some associated with intelligence agencies, it reflects a secretive mentality where the health and well-being of marginalized communities were overlooked. It can be seen as indicative of a historical pattern where vulnerable populations have often been exploited for research purposes without their knowledge or consent. Moreover, the impact of the Tuskagee study is far-reaching. It has breached the trust between African American communities and healthcare systems, creating a historical backdrop of skepticism towards medical research and public health initiatives. This distrust has persisted, influencing healthcare access and participation in clinical trials among minority groups even today. The scars from the study remain embedded in collective memory, affecting relationships between providers and patients. Importantly, examining cases like the Tuskagee syphilis study allows individuals to reflect on the ethical dimensions in contemporary medical research. It serves as a cautionary tale of the consequences of placing scientific inquiry above human dignity. Ethical research practices have since evolved, but questions about consent, equity, and treatment persist in modern studies. The legacy of the Tuskagee syphilis study remains relevant. It is essential to remain vigilant against the temptations of prioritizing data collection over ethical considerations in medical research, ensuring that human rights are upheld. The history of this study encourages ongoing dialogues about fairness, accountability, and respect for individuals participating in research. By understanding the past, there is hope for a more ethical future in medical research. Awareness of the harm caused by the Tuskagee study continues to inform how society approaches health disparities and advocates for justice in healthcare. It serves as a reminder that every individual deserves to be treated with respect and dignity, and that lessons learned must guide future practices in the pursuit of knowledge and healing. In conclusion, the Tuskagee syphilis study is a stark illustration of the ethical challenges faced in medical research. It demonstrates how, when left unchecked, the pursuit of scientific knowledge can lead to severe violations of trust in human rights. As society progresses, the responsibility remains to ensure that history does not repeat itself, honoring the lessons learned from those who suffered in silence for the sake of understanding. Being mindful of these narratives fosters a more compassionate and ethical approach to health and research in our communities. In the early 1960s, during a time of intense geopolitical tension, the United States government was deeply concerned about the growing influence of Cuba, particularly under the leadership of Fidel Castro. This concern was exacerbated by the Cold War context, where the spread of communism was viewed as a direct threat to the U.S. and its allies. In this climate of anxiety, a series of proposals known as Operation Northwoods emerged, illustrating the lengths to which some officials were willing to go to justify military intervention in Cuba. Operation Northwoods was a plan drafted by the Joint Chiefs of Staff in March 1962. The overarching goal of the operation was to create a pretext for military action against Cuba. The plans included a variety of deceptive strategies designed to manipulate the public and bolster support for a military response. Proponents believed that a coordinated series of activities could provoke outrage and rally the American public behind a military campaign. Among the most chilling aspects of Operation Northwoods were the proposed false flag attacks. These were incidents that would appear to be executed by Cuba, but were in fact orchestrated by the U.S. government. Some of the plans involved the creation of a fake Cuban terrorist attack on U.S. soil, or the destruction of a U.S. aircraft, which would then be blamed on Cuba. One suggestion was to hijack a plane and stage it as having been taken by Cuban agents, showcasing a dramatic and threatening act that would undoubtedly capture public attention. Additionally, Operation Northwoods included ideas such as bombing various U.S. military bases or even downing a military aircraft, all in the name of rallying the nation against Castro's regime. The rationale was that such actions would provoke a strong public and political reaction, thereby justifying a military response. This plan reflected a tactical mindset where the end was viewed as justifying the means, no matter how morally questionable. These proposals were ultimately submitted to President John F. Kennedy, who found them deeply troubling. He firmly rejected the plans, advocating instead for diplomacy and other non-military approaches to handling Cuba. The decision highlighted a significant divergence within the U.S. government about the best strategy to adopt in the face of perceived threats. Despite the plans never being enacted, Operation Northwoods provides a fascinating glimpse into a mindset prevalent during a turbulent era in American history. The willingness to consider extreme measures for political and military goals raises questions about ethics and the limits of governance. It serves as a reminder of the complex interplay between national security, public perception, and moral accountability. This history invites reflection on how far a government can go in the name of national defense, and the constant scrutiny that should be applied to ensure that actions taken in the shadows serve the public interest rather than obscure political agendas. Operation Northwoods, while not executed, remains a testament to the precarious balance between power, truth, and deception in international relations. As we explore this piece of history further, we should consider the implications of such strategies. How do they shape a nation's approach to foreign policy? What lessons can we draw from them about transparency, trust, and the responsibility of leadership? And perhaps most importantly, how do decisions made in secrecy resonate across time, influencing public sentiment and national identity? The echoes of Operation Northwoods are still felt in contemporary discussions regarding military intervention and the moral obligations of governments. They remind us that as citizens we must remain vigilant, questioning actions taken in our name and demanding accountability from those in power. History teaches us that the stakes of political decisions can lead to far-reaching consequences, not just in the international landscape, but within the very fabric of society itself. In our exploration of these complex themes, it becomes clear that understanding the past is crucial in shaping a more informed and conscientious future. Whether engaged in discussions around national security, diplomatic relations, or the ethics of governance, the cautionary tales of the past, like the ones outlined in Operation Northwoods, continue to resonate and command our attention. Operation Chaos was a covert program initiated by the United States government during the late 1960s and early 1970s, a time of significant social upheaval and unrest. It focused on gathering intelligence on individuals and groups protesting against American involvement in the Vietnam War. This operation marked a critical point in the evolution of domestic surveillance, blurring the lines between national security and citizens' rights. The backdrop of Operation Chaos was a profound era in American history. The Vietnam War was deeply controversial, prompting widespread protests across the nation. Various movements, ranging from civil rights advocates to students and anti-war activists, were voicing their dissent. The government's response to these protests was increasingly aggressive, reflecting a fear that dissent could jeopardize national security. As tensions grew, intelligence agencies sought ways to monitor these groups and individuals. Operation Chaos was conceived under the auspices of the Central Intelligence Agency. The goal of the operation was to collect intelligence not only on foreign affairs, but also on domestic discontent. This initiative was part of a broader intelligence program that aimed to keep tabs on various protest movements, particularly those questioning the government's decisions regarding the war in Vietnam. The CIA employed a range of intelligence-gathering techniques, including infiltration of colleges, universities, and activist organizations. One of the most troubling aspects of Operation Chaos was the extent of its reach. The operation operated in total secrecy, often without the knowledge or consent of the American public. Millions of dollars were spent on surveillance, often resulting in the collection of vast amounts of personal information. Agents would attend rallies, monitor communications, and even infiltrate organizations. The justification for this invasive approach was the belief that it would help in predicting and preventing potential threats to national security. The operation posed significant ethical and legal questions. Critics argued that it represented a dangerous overreach by the government into the private lives of its citizens. The program primarily targeted those exercising their First Amendment rights by voicing dissent against government policies. Activists and ordinary citizens alike found themselves under the microscope, simply for engaging in political expression. This climate of suspicion fostered a chilling effect, where individuals were wary of expressing their views for fear of being monitored. Moreover, Operation Chaos was part of a series of intelligence initiatives that often blurred the lines between law enforcement and military action. The intelligence community viewed protesters not merely as dissenters but potentially as enemies of the state. As a result, many individuals affiliated with anti-war efforts were subjected to undue scrutiny and harassment. Awareness of Operation Chaos gradually grew as investigative journalists began to expose the extent of domestic surveillance. Revelations concerning the operation sparked a public outcry and led to broader calls for governmental accountability and oversight. The exposure of such programs highlighted the necessity for transparency within intelligence practices. Many Americans began to demand stricter regulations on the surveillance of citizens, urging legislators to protect civil liberties in the face of perceived threats. As public discontent towards the Vietnam War continued to escalate, the government's reliance on surveillance tactics only heightened tensions. The backlash against these operations contributed to a broader civil rights movement, as citizens began to assert their rights against government overreach. This period in American history became a pivotal moment for discussions surrounding privacy and the limits of state power. In the long run, Operation Chaos became emblematic of the era's struggle between security and liberty. It raised critical questions about the role of government in monitoring its citizens and the balance between maintaining order and respecting individual freedoms. It also paved the way for future discussions on the implications of surveillance programs, a topic that remains relevant today, especially within the context of advances in technology and privacy concerns. Ultimately, Operation Chaos demonstrates how political climates can influence governmental actions. The program's existence is a stark reminder of the lengths to which authorities might go to maintain control during periods of unrest. As society continues to confront complex issues surrounding civil liberties and national security, the lessons learned from this chapter of American history remain vital. Understanding the implications of domestic surveillance is crucial for ensuring that citizens retain their rights in a democratic society. As we reflect upon the legacy of Operation Chaos, it is important to remember the fundamental values of transparency, accountability, and the right to dissent. In a world where governments are often faced with significant challenges, the preservation of civil liberties remains essential, reminding us to be vigilant and proactive in protecting the freedoms that define our society. The balance between security and liberty is not merely a historical debate, but an enduring conversation that shapes the present and the future of democratic engagement. Project MK-Ultra was a secret CIA program that began in the early 1950s and was focused on the study of mind control and behavioral modification. One of the lesser-known aspects of this project involved experimentation on unsuspecting individuals, including office workers, in a low-budget context. This part of the project reveals a fascinating yet unsettling intersection of psychology, ethics, and the economic constraints of secret programs. The core goal of Project MK-Ultra was to explore the limits and potentials of the human mind through various techniques. These included the administration of drugs, hypnosis, and sensory deprivation, among other methods. The idea was that if the CIA could gain control over the human psyche, they could manipulate behavior and extract information from unwilling subjects. However, rather than conducting high-cost, elaborate experiments in controlled environments, some tests were executed in everyday settings, including corporate offices. Imagine being an office worker in the 1950s or 60s, going about your daily tasks in a cubicle surrounded by coworkers. Little did you know that your environment was being monitored and that the agency was interested in your responses to unexpected stimuli. Researchers sought to determine how standard office interactions could shift when faced with unusual or surprising elements. Perhaps they introduced sudden, loud noises, unexpected questions, or even changes to the office layout, all designed to mimic high-stress scenarios. The reactions of individuals in these situations were valuable for understanding how stress and confusion affected decision-making and behavior. This low-budget approach allowed the CIA to gather data efficiently and without raising suspicion. By utilizing ordinary office spaces and the daily routines of workers, they could observe naturalistic responses, eliminating the need for more elaborate setups. For example, a group of researchers might have watched how a sudden power outage would affect productivity and interpersonal dynamics among a team. They were particularly interested in how people's perceptions could be manipulated through minor changes in their environment. Were they more likely to accept directives during moments of confusion? How would their loyalty to their organization shift after experiencing the unexpected? These questions were central to the program. In some instances, the agency turned to the scientific community, reaching out to psychologists and research institutions. Funding for imaginative ideas and novel hypotheses was not only a tactic for scientific exploration, but also served as a cover for clandestine experimentation. Various techniques, such as the application of subliminal messaging in workplace environments, became part of the research agenda. By monitoring how these messages influence productivity and mood, the CIA aimed to find a formula that could be used to sway opinions without individuals becoming resentful or aware of manipulation. Take, for example, the theory of subliminal messaging in promotional material. If an office worker saw brief flashes of encouraging words on a screen as they worked, how would that affect their performance? Would a simple, unobtrusive suggestion improve their focus or motivation without them realizing it? The answers to these questions were the essence of what the agency sought. Furthermore, researchers examined the concept of social dynamics. An essential part of MK-Ultra's interest lay in understanding how relationships among coworkers influence their susceptibility to influence. For instance, did employees with strong friendships withstand stress more effectively, or were they more pliable to peer pressure in a manipulated situation? The research into these interactions often took place during normal office activities under the guise of team-building exercises or corporate research initiatives. However, as is often the case with projects veiled in secrecy, ethical considerations frequently took a back seat. The lack of informed consent meant that office workers remained oblivious to the fact that they were part of these psychological experiments. The issue of morality deepens when one realizes the psychological toll that unexpected stimuli can take on individuals, especially when they are not prepared for such experiences. The ramifications of this research extended beyond the office walls, influencing policies and techniques that could be used in future operations. The lessons learned from these low-budget logistics tests and mind control experiments in the workplace reflect a broader commentary on human behavior and the potential for manipulation. Although the official workings of the MK-Ultra project eventually faded from public view, the methodologies and ethical questions it raised continue to resonate today. From advertising techniques to organizational behavior studies, the legacy of these investigations can be seen in the development of strategies that sway decision-making and conduct in various settings across society. As the world of psychology has evolved, many of the practices once considered groundbreaking are now viewed through a critical lens. The realization that individuals can be influenced without their awareness prompts society to question the legitimacy of such tactics in current environments, whether in corporate settings, media, or technology. In summary, the Project MK-Ultra economy represents a fascinating yet cautionary tale about the lengths to which organizations will go to understand human behavior and the potential consequences of that knowledge. It serves as a reminder of the importance of ethical boundaries in research and the ongoing need for transparency and consent in the exploration of human psychology. Operation Phoenix was an intricate and controversial campaign during the Vietnam War, aiming to dismantle the Viet Cong's infrastructure through intelligence-driven methods. Launched in 1967 by the CIA and the South Vietnamese government, the operation sought to target the civilian supporters and the infrastructure that sustained the Viet Cong movement. This initiative involved a range of activities that would ultimately be labeled as systematic and at times brutal efforts to neutralize perceived threats. One of the key elements of Operation Phoenix was its reliance on intelligence. U.S. military and CIA operatives worked closely with South Vietnamese forces to identify and target individuals suspected of being involved in the Viet Cong. This information often came from local informants, which meant that personal grievances and rivalries could lead to unjust accusations. The approach prioritized expedience over meticulous verification, sometimes resulting in the harming of innocent civilians. The methods employed during Operation Phoenix varied widely, encompassing everything from simple arrests to covert assassinations. A significant focus was placed on gathering intelligence that could identify leaders and key figures within the Viet Cong. Once identified, these individuals could be targeted for removal, either through detainment or often more final measures. This approach is what many critics have highlighted as morally questionable, raising debates about the ethics of preemptive strikes against individuals based on suspicions rather than confirmed actions. Moreover, the program incorporated local self-defense militias, encouraging South Vietnamese citizens to become involved in the fight against the Viet Cong. This led to a blurred line between civilian life and military engagement, where the local populace was both a target and a participant. The fostering of distrust among communities made it difficult for individuals to feel safe or secure, as the fear of being branded a supporter of the Viet Cong could lead to severe consequences. Operation Phoenix is also notable for its psychological tactics. The goal was not only to eliminate certain individuals, but to instill fear among the broader Viet Cong network. By demonstrating consequences for involvement or even perceived support, the operation aimed to deter future recruitment and participation in the insurgency. Propaganda efforts accompanied direct actions, highlighting successes and aiming to showcase the futility of supporting the Viet Cong. The operation was not without significant backlash and criticism, both domestically and internationally. Reports of human rights violations surfaced, indicating that the implementation of these tactics often went unchecked. The methods were scrutinized for their brutality and lack of accountability, leading to a tarnished reputation for U.S. involvement in Vietnam. Critics argue that the operation produced more resentment than support, as it alienated many potential allies among the Vietnamese population who were caught in the middle of a complex conflict. At its core, Operation Phoenix reflects the chaotic nature of the Vietnam War, where the methods of warfare evolved beyond traditional battles. The use of covert actions, combined with the difficulties of measuring success in asymmetric conflict, painted a picture of a war that shifted moral boundaries and challenged the very definitions of combat and valor. The operation illustrates the complexities of engaging in indirect warfare, where the lines between friend and foe often become obscured. Ultimately, although Operation Phoenix was designed to weaken the enemy's capabilities significantly, it represents a broader narrative of the Vietnam War. The blend of strategic military objectives with the intricate dynamics of local relationships and societal structures reveals the profound difficulties of counterinsurgency efforts. As history reflects on the Vietnam War, Operation Phoenix stands out as a symbol of the challenging implications and moral dilemmas faced in warfare, exploring the depths of human experience amidst the detours of conflict. As we analyze these events today, it is essential to consider the lessons learned and how they continue to influence military strategies and foreign relations moving forward. The legacy of Operation Phoenix sparks discussions on ethics, choice, and the ever-present tension between achieving security and upholding humanitarian principles in times of war. The KUBARK Torture Manual, officially known as the QUBARK Counterintelligence Interrogation Manual, is a document produced by the Central Intelligence Agency during the Cold War period. It serves as a historical reference point for understanding certain interrogation practices employed by intelligence agencies during tumultuous times. The manual was created in the late 1950s and reflects the context of the Cold War, a period marked by intense geopolitical tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. The KUBARK manual is notable for its systematic approach to interrogation, outlining strategies intended to extract information from individuals considered as threats or potential informants. It is essential to understand this document within the broader scope of the historical and ethical debates surrounding interrogation techniques and human rights. One of the vital aspects of the manual is its emphasis on psychological manipulation over physical torture, though it does not completely dismiss the use of coercive methods. The creators of the document recognize that the mind could be a powerful tool in breaking down resistance. Techniques described in the manual include the use of fear, isolation, and psychological stress, which were believed to limit the subject's ability to resist interrogation. The manual dives into topics such as the development of rapport, the importance of understanding the individual being interrogated, and how to exploit their weaknesses. For example, it suggests establishing a connection with the subject to make them more amenable to sharing information. This could involve providing basic needs and creating an environment that fosters dialogue rather than fear, encouraging the subject to trust the interrogator. The KUBARK manual also discusses the balance of techniques where psychological tactics can be employed in conjunction with physical methods. While the manual acknowledges risks and ethical concerns associated with these practices, it illustrates a pragmatic approach aimed at achieving results in high-stakes scenarios. The decision-making outlined in the manual reveals a chilling calculus, where the end justifies the means in the relentless pursuit of information. Illustrating the conflicted nature of the manual, one can find references to the role of environmental factors in the interrogation process. For instance, altering the physical surroundings of a subject can impact their mental state. Darkness, cold, or well-lit spaces can all play a pivotal role in making a subject feel vulnerable or exposed. This kind of manipulation underlines the importance of context in an interrogation setting. Despite its detailed strategies, the KUBARK manual has drawn criticism from many human rights advocates and ethicists. They argue that it presents a disturbing precedent for legitimizing coercive tactics. The broader implications of using such techniques bring to light the significant moral dilemmas faced by those involved in intelligence work. The manual doesn't merely serve as an instructional guide, but raises fundamental questions about the limits of state power and the protection of human dignity. The historical significance of the KUBARK manual extends beyond its immediate applications. It has become a point of reference in discussions surrounding torture and interrogation practices, particularly as those practices have evolved over the decades. Amazing documentary and research efforts have focused on unearthing its contents, shedding light on how intelligence agencies operate under extreme pressure. Reflecting on historical cases of interrogation informed by KUBARK principles, one can glean insights into the experiences of those subjected to these methods. Many veteran survivors and scholars have shared their testimonies, building a narrative around the human impact of interrogation techniques that prioritize results over ethical considerations. These stories highlight the psychological scars that often accompany such experiences, illustrating the cost of information extraction. The legacy of the KUBARK manual is complex. It invites a critical examination of the intersection between national security and human rights. Many researchers and commentators advocate for the revision of interrogation practices, emphasizing the necessity for humane treatment of all individuals, regardless of their circumstances. This dedication to recognizing the humanity of each person echoes loudly in current debates regarding lawful standards and accountability in intelligence work. As we delve deeper into the implications of the KUBARK manual, it becomes clear that it is not merely a historical document, but a starting point for ongoing conversations about the ethics of interrogation, the responsibilities of intelligence agencies, and the quest for justice in the face of adversity. In a world marked by conflict and the pursuit of information, understanding the balance between security and morality remains paramount, and the lessons learned from this manual continue to shape policy and practice in the contemporary landscape of intelligence operations. Subliminal messaging, the practice of sending hidden signals to influence behavior and perceptions, took center stage during the Cold War as a fascinating psychological tool. This concept explores the idea that our subconscious mind can effectively process information we consciously overlook. At its core, subliminal messaging involves methods that deliver messages below the threshold of conscious awareness, thus aiming to affect the listener's thoughts and actions indirectly. In the context of the Cold War, which marked a period of intense geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, subliminal messaging became an area of interest for many psychological researchers and government officials. The stakes were incredibly high, leading to numerous experiments designed to unveil the power of these subtle manipulations and determine how they could potentially sway public opinion or influence adversaries. One of the most famous instances of subliminal messaging testing occurred after the 1957 release of the film Psycho. Allegedly, a study found that brief flashes of images, such as popcorn and cola, shown just milliseconds on the screen during film screenings, could stir cravings and boost sales significantly. This spectacle sparked interest in whether similar techniques could be applied in more serious contexts, such as warfare and espionage. As the Cold War escalated, both superpowers recognized the potential power subliminal messaging held. Reports emerged indicating that the U.S. military conducted clandestine tests to examine how subliminal stimuli could be used to influence enemy soldiers or sway public opinions in foreign nations. The effectiveness of subliminal communication could determine how easy it would be to persuade someone to adopt different beliefs without them realizing it. One notable method involved embedding quick messages into media broadcasts. This practice raised ethical questions, as it skirted the boundary of free will. In one documented experiment, researchers dubbed songs played backwards, filled with subtle suggestions aimed at encouraging listeners to act in a particular way. Although the outcomes were varied, the potential for manipulation captured the imagination of many. Moreover, advertisements began to include elements designed to attract attention on a subconscious level. Marketers employed techniques that subtly associated their products with desirable emotions or feelings, fostering a sense of urgency or need in potential consumers. People often fail to recognize these influence tactics, as they operate beneath the level of conscious thought. The psychological implications of subliminal messaging were profound. Researchers sought to understand the mechanics of the subconscious mind, and how it processes information differently than the conscious mind. Questions emerged about how these backdoor strategies could affect personal decision-making and societal norms, raising significant concerns not only for governance and warfare but also for everyday life, where media flooded into homes. As the Cold War continued, evidence began to emerge about the effect of sound and visual subliminal cues. Experiments demonstrated that individuals exposed to subliminal messages could exhibit shifts in attitudes or behavior, suggesting that these messages penetrate deeper into the psyche than previously thought. For instance, participants exposed to persuasive music paired with images advocated for specific social issues more vigorously than those without such exposure. Discussions around subliminal messaging also opened up a larger conversation regarding the ethical use of psychological techniques in media and advertising. As more individuals became aware of the potential for manipulation, a growing demand for transparency in messaging took shape, pushing back against clandestine practices that might infringe upon personal autonomy. As the Cold War drew to a close, the fascination with subliminal messaging didn't fade but evolved. Society began focusing more on the broader implications of advertising and media manipulation rather than solely their tactical applications in geopolitics. Awareness of how subconscious messaging could affect people's lives led to a more critical examination of the content consumed daily, highlighting the importance of media literacy. Today, the legacy of subliminal messaging testing during the Cold War serves as a reminder of the power of psychological manipulation through media. It underscores the need to remain vigilant about the influences surrounding us, encouraging everyone to engage with media content thoughtfully. While the debates continue on the effectiveness and ethics of subliminal messaging, the influence it wields in our everyday lives is undeniably significant. This exploration of subliminal messages invites curiosity about how unseen forces shape behaviors and beliefs, a reflection of the intricate relationship between our minds and the media we consume. Understanding these dynamics may empower individuals to navigate the world around them with a sharper awareness of the subtleties of communication and influence. In the fascinating realm of espionage and unconventional military tactics, stories of ingenious innovation often capture our imagination. One such tale that stands out involves a project known as Operation Pesticide, an intriguing venture that sought to utilize insects in the collection of intelligence. Just as Operation Acoustic Kitty aimed to transform a cat into a covert listening device, this audacious plan aimed to harness the capabilities of insects for secretive reconnaissance missions. Imagine a world where bugs become more than just an ordinary part of our environment. Historically, insects have been studied for their remarkable sensory abilities. Some insects can detect pheromones from miles away, while others can sense minute changes in their surroundings. Operation Pesticide sought to leverage these unique talents. The concept was to create a system that would allow operators to control these creatures and effectively train them for espionage purposes. The idea was to deploy insects, such as flies or beetles, equipped with miniature technology that could relay information back to agents. Researchers explored techniques to manipulate the nervous systems of these bugs, allowing them to navigate predefined routes and potentially gather sensitive information from enemy installations. Picture a tiny beetle trained to buzz its way into a high-security area, equipped with a tiny microphone. The possibilities seemed endless, as researchers envisioned fleets of these bioengineered spies buzzing through the air. To achieve this, scientists investigated various methods, including the placement of tiny electrodes on the insects' bodies to stimulate their movements electronically. By sending signals to specific parts of the insect's brain, it could be prompted to fly in one direction or another. This groundwork laid a foundation for potential operational use, exploring whether insects could be programmed to enter enemy camps undetected and relay sounds or visuals back to their handlers. One of the most notable inspirations behind this project was the remarkable adaptability of nature. Insects exhibit extraordinary resilience and adaptability to their habitats, making them ideal candidates for espionage. For instance, certain species of moths can evade predators by blending seamlessly into their surroundings, an ability that would be invaluable in covert operations. By harnessing such traits, scientists hoped that they could fashion not only effective spies, but unassuming ones as well. During the experiments, researchers encountered several hurdles. The challenge of miniaturizing technology to fit on a bug without hindering its natural behavior proved to be complex. Furthermore, understanding the limited lifespan of insects, compared to machinery, presented another layer of complexity. Yet, the innovative spirit behind Operation Pesticide drove scientists to continuously iterate on their creations, seeking to refine the balance between control and the creature's natural instincts. The implications of successful deployments were tantalizing. Imagine if insects could be sent into enemy territories, unnoticed and overlooked due to their ordinary presence. A clandestine insect could potentially be the eyes and ears in a restricted zone, providing critical intelligence to military analysts, changing the game of information warfare forever. The ability to gather data without the need for expensive equipment or explosive devices would revolutionize tactical strategies. The ethical considerations of such projects inevitably arose. The idea of controlling living creatures for the purpose of surveillance opened a debate about the morality of exploiting nature for human ends. Would bugs have a right to exist outside the constraints of human conflict? Moreover, what would be the long-term consequences of such technologies? The discourse became a balancing act between the pursuit of advances in military capabilities and the preservation of ecological sanctity. Though Operation Pesticide has not been widely reported in contemporary discourse, the thought of using insects as spies still resonates today. With the rapid advancements in technology, the potential for creating biohybrid systems, integrating biology with electronics, is becoming increasingly feasible. Imagine future scenarios where researchers successfully develop sophisticated applications that allow for seamless communication between humans and insects. In conclusion, while Operation Pesticide did not reach the heights of success initially anticipated, it opened a doorway into the conversations around utilizing nature's own designs for human benefit. As we continue to explore the boundaries of technology and biology, we can only wonder what other innovative strategies could emerge from blending the natural world with the realm of human ingenuity. The idea of bugs as spies might one day be more than just an idle fantasy, offering a glimpse into the ever-evolving landscape of espionage and surveillance technology. As we venture into this brave new world, the legacy of Operation Pesticide reminds us that the intersection of innovation and nature often yields the most captivating possibilities. The Finders case is a complex and intriguing story from the 1980s, intertwining allegations of child trafficking and whispers of intelligence games. To start, let's travel back to the early 1980s in Washington, D.C. It was a time of significant political intrigue, with the Cold War still a looming presence and various shadowy operations being conducted behind the scenes. In this tumultuous atmosphere, a peculiar group known as, quote, the Finders, came to public attention, drawing in a cocktail of conspiracy theories, government scrutiny, and investigative journalism. The Finders were a small, unconventional community led by a man named Marion Petty. This group espoused a philosophy centered around free living and communal child-rearing. On the surface, their lifestyle seemed harmless and even appealing to some. They focused on educating children in a non-traditional manner and prioritized nature and self-sufficiency. However, suspicion surrounding the group began to mount when law enforcement intervened in a series of incidents that raised eyebrows. In 1987, the story began when 2 children were found wandering alone in a park in Tallahassee, Florida. The children, ages 2 and 6, were taken into custody by local authorities. When questioned about their circumstances, the children revealed that they belonged to a group called the Finders and had been living a nomadic lifestyle. The details of their situation caught the attention of law enforcement, followed by Child Protective Services. As the investigation unfolded, police looked deeper into the Finders and their unusual practices. This is where it starts to get interesting. The Tallahassee police discovered that this group had connections that extended far beyond their apparent lifestyle. Reports surfaced indicating that the Finders operated under a larger umbrella, potentially tied to intelligence networks. This added layers of intrigue and confusion as the question arose, were they merely an eccentric collective, or was there something far more insidious at play? The case took a significant turn when documents were found in the home of the Finders that raised eyebrows among authorities. These papers suggested a broader operation involving not just unconventional child-rearing practices, but potential child trafficking. The allegations surged further when connections to the CIA and other intelligence agencies were mentioned, painting a picture of a network that blended the lines between espionage, social experimentation, and child welfare. As the investigation continued, local law enforcement attempted to obtain information from higher authorities, but responses were often vague or dismissive, reinforcing the belief that there was more than met the eye. Moreover, some law enforcement officials reported having their inquiries stymied, leading to speculation regarding cover-ups or protective measures around those who were potentially involved. Unanswered questions abounded. What was the true nature of the Finders? Were they pawns in a larger game, or were they orchestrating something more sinister? Interestingly enough, media coverage of the situation began to amplify these theories. Conspiracy theorists seized upon the narrative of child trafficking, suggesting that the Finders were a front for a more extensive network that had connections to influential individuals across various sectors, including government and intelligence. This sparked public interest and anxiety over the varying threads of child safety and national security. Many began to question the reliability of the institutions meant to protect children, wondering if they were caught in a scheme far beyond their understanding. Throughout the years, the narrative surrounding the Finders has become a talking point for many conspiracy theorists and those skeptical of government transparency. The questions regarding the group and their alleged connections to intelligence agencies remained largely unanswered, with some speculating that certain elements may have been intentionally suppressed to maintain public order and trust in authority. The lack of definitive resolution left many aspects of the case shrouded in enigma. As time passed, the story evolved into what some consider a cautionary tale about how the boundaries of community, authority, and the unseen world of intelligence operations could blur. The Finders case opened up discussions about ethics concerning privacy and the implications of living outside the norm. It forced society to confront uncomfortable realities, even as it wrapped many in a blanket of suspicion and intrigue. In retrospect, the Finders case encapsulates the paranoia and mistrust of the era, where allegations of covert government operations could spark conversation across dinner tables and news outlets alike. It remains an interesting piece of history, illustrating how rumors and hard-to-digest details can coalesce into broader narratives, revealing our deepest fears about authority and the safeguarding of innocence. This story keeps people asking questions, seeking answers, and reflecting on the nature of trust, community, and the lengths to which people might go for their beliefs. Even today, the case resonates as a pertinent reminder of the complexities within human connection, societal norms, and the measures taken in the name of security and control. Shock therapy experiments have a complex and sometimes controversial history in the realm of psychiatry. One of the most notable and early forms of this treatment is electroconvulsive therapy, or ECT, which emerged in the 1930s. This method involved applying electrical currents to the brain to induce a seizure, with the intention of alleviating severe mental health conditions. Proponents believe that by triggering this controlled seizure, practitioners could disrupt erratic brain activity and reset the patterns of thought and emotion in patients struggling with debilitating disorders like depression or schizophrenia. Imagine a brain as a busy highway. Over time, some roads may get congested with heavy traffic, while others might be abandoned. Shock therapy acts like a construction project, aimed at clearing out those clogged routes while potentially paving new paths. The hope behind such treatments was to reshape how the brain processed emotions, unearthing core issues that may have gone unattended for years. In the mid-20th century, these shock treatments started evolving, and researchers began exploring the boundaries of their application. Studies conducted in psychiatric labs revealed that it was not merely the physical jolts administered to the brain, but the psychological effects of the treatment that contributed to changing an individual's mental state. For some, the experience could result in profound shifts in perspective, akin to flipping a switch from darkness to light. The anticipation of change, however, brought with it a myriad of ethical questions and moral dilemmas. While many patients reported marked improvements, others experienced unwelcome side effects, including memory loss. This sparked debates over informed consent, whether individuals understood the risks involved before undergoing such radical treatments. Some stories emerged that illustrated the duality of the experience. A patient may enter this session with a heavy heart and tumultuous thoughts, yet come out feeling lighter and oddly free, relieved of burdens they had long carried. Others, however, walked away with lost fragments of their personal history, the highs and lows that defined their identities fading like echoes. In more contemporary society, the fascination with shock therapy has shifted, transitioning into the exploration of modern-day neuromodulation techniques. Brain stimulation methods are now researched with a more refined lens, incorporating advanced imaging technology and neurophysiological understanding. Scientists are investigating how targeted stimulation can potentially enhance cognitive functions, leading to curiosity regarding the application of these methods in reshaping behavioral patterns. Consider the implications of reprogramming a brain's response to trauma. During early experiments, some researchers guided subjects through the process of exposure to previously distressing scenarios while employing these shock treatments. This specific method mirrored formulas used in behavioral therapy, where repeated exposure under controlled circumstances could, theoretically, lead to diminished sensitivity to those triggers. As these experiments unfolded, it seemed as if participants were given a fresh perspective, revealing layers of resilience previously hidden beneath. Another compelling extension of this area of study lies in its crossover into memory formation. The brain's ability to form, store, and recall memories is fascinating. Scientists have been probing the concept of manipulating memory encoding and retrieval pathways, with some work attempting to undo the emotional weight attached to negative experiences. Such research raises all sorts of questions about identity and the very nature of who we are. If our memories define us, could altering them pave the way for a revitalized sense of self? Nevertheless, as narratives around these experiments continue to develop, the ethical considerations remain paramount. Involuntary treatments raise red flags, as they hint at the potential for misuse and misunderstanding. The balance of power in therapeutic relationships is crucial, as professionals endeavor to maintain a commitment to do no harm. Enlightenment instead arises from deeper discourse and mutual understanding between patients and their caregivers. In the wake of these inquiries, a deeper appreciation for the human mind surfaces. What makes us who we are? How do traumas shape our behaviors? The quest for understanding often feels like an exploration of uncharted territories. The mind is a labyrinth, filled with twists and turns that scientists and researchers aim to navigate, illuminating paths yet traveled. Through all of this, one thing remains clear. The journey into the depths of psychiatric treatment, especially within the realms of shock therapy experiments, reveals the intricate dance between hope and caution. Each story is unique, reflective of the profound complexity of human experience. While the intention may lie in crafting a brighter tomorrow, the commitment to focusing on compassion and ethical querying serves as the guiding light through the often murky waters of psychological treatments. As we delve into our understanding of neurological interventions, we are reminded of the delicate balance that surrounds the mind and the profound responsibilities held by those who seek to reorient its pathways. During the Cold War, an era defined by tension and intrigue, a unique venture unfolded within the realm of military research. This was the exploration of the human mind, delving into psychic abilities and the potential to weaponize these talents. One of the notable efforts in this field was the Stargate Project, a program initiated by the United States government in the 1970s to investigate psychic phenomena and its possible applications in intelligence and military operations. Imagine a world where the human mind could transcend its conventional limitations, tapping into abilities like telepathy, remote viewing, and precognition. The pursuit of such capabilities captured the attention of military and intelligence agencies looking for an edge in the increasingly fraught geopolitical landscape of the time. The premise was not unlike that of science fiction, but for those who believed in the power of the mind, it held the promise of true advancements in warfare and intelligence collection. The Stargate Project was a culmination of various research efforts focusing on extrasensory perception, or especially, scientists, psychologists, and parapsychologists sought to understand whether individuals could gather information without relying on traditional sensory perception. Remote viewing, one of the cornerstones of the project, involved individuals attempting to visualize and describe distant locations or events without any direct sensory input. Imagine someone sitting in a room, eyes closed, yet able to provide detailed descriptions of a location thousands of miles away. This was the goal. In one famous instance, a remote viewer might be tasked with describing a secret facility behind enemy lines. The hope was that such abilities could provide critical intelligence in situations where conventional spying methods fell short. As the research progressed, the results were mixed. Some claimed remarkable successes, while skeptics argued that the findings were mere coincidences. Regardless, the intrigue around these abilities inspired further investigation. Throughout the 1980s, various projects and experiments emerged, linking the operations of the Stargate Project with insights from psychology and an understanding of human consciousness. The focus expanded beyond remote viewing to include telekinesis and other phenomena. Imagine the implications of being able to manipulate objects with mere thought, or to know an enemy's strategy before it unfolded. Although the principles behind these claims often seemed far-fetched, the prospect of harnessing such powers captured the imagination of a nation eager for any advantage during a period of global uncertainty. Notably, the advent of technology in the latter half of the 20th century added another layer of complexity to the research. As scientists began to explore neural networks and brainwave patterns, there was a burgeoning hope that technology could amplify human abilities. Brain-computer interfaces, for example, hinted at possibilities where thought could be translated into action or communication. This combination of psychology and technology hinted at a future where the line between mind and machine blurred, and the potential to tap into psychic abilities was taken seriously by scientists and military strategists alike. Alongside these research projects, popular culture began to embrace the idea of psychic abilities. Movies and books featured characters with extraordinary powers, influencing public perception and interest in the unknown capabilities of the mind. This cultural backdrop set the stage for governmental interest and investment in these unconventional fields of study. Perhaps, they thought, if organized military groups could cultivate psychic warriors, it would change the face of conflict entirely. The Stargate Project was declassified in the 1990s, revealing what had been years of extensive research into these phenomena. While many skeptics dismissed the findings as unfounded, a number of committed researchers continue to advocate for the potential of the human mind beyond scientifically supported boundaries. Think about it. What if there were aspects of our consciousness that remain largely untapped, holding secrets that could alter our understanding of reality itself? Even as the Cold War ended, interest in psychic research did not fade away completely. New organizations emerged, continuing the pursuit of understanding the profound capabilities of the human mind. While mainstream science often approaches psychic phenomena with skepticism, the quest to explore the uncharted territories of consciousness reflects a deeper desire to understand what it means to be human. Fast forward to today, The exploration of psychic abilities remains a niche but compelling area of intrigue. With advancements in neuroscience and quantum mechanics, researchers are revisiting many concepts that were once deemed outlandish. The connection between mind and matter continues to inspire a new generation of scientists, philosophers, and enthusiasts who believe there is still so much more to discover. In conclusion, the quest to weaponize psychic abilities, particularly as seen in the Stargate Project during the Cold War, serves as a fascinating chapter in the interplay between science, psychology, and military strategy. Whether one believes in the potential of the human mind or not, the exploration of such extraordinary possibilities invites contemplation about the limits of human potential and the frontiers that may still lie ahead in the quest to understand consciousness itself. Project MK-Ultra was a covert operation initiated by the Central Intelligence Agency in the early 1950s, primarily focused on mind control and psychological manipulation techniques. Although this project was officially abandoned in the 1970s, its legacy reveals a fascinating and often unsettling narrative about how the quest for control and understanding of the human mind led to various expansions and involuntary influences on different sectors of society. Initially, MK-Ultra's main goal was to explore methods of interrogation and create substances that could enhance mental performance or facilitate brainwashing. Researchers conducted a series of experiments using drugs, hypnosis, and sensory deprivation. The infamous use of LSD was just one of the many techniques employed, illustrating a commitment to push the boundaries of psychology and pharmacology. This relentless pursuit paved the way for unregulated experimentation that, in some cases, involved unwitting subjects, raising ethical questions that are still debated today. As MK-Ultra evolved, its implications began branching out into different facets of governmental and public sector life. For example, the project caught the attention of various intelligence services around the world. Countries studying the methods developed by MK-Ultra began to adapt and implement similar practices in their own military and intelligence operations, leading to a sort of global psychological arms race. This expansion showcased how the thirst for intelligence and dominance had no borders, affecting international relations and diplomatic ties. Moreover, the techniques honed through MK-Ultra found their way into law enforcement. The methodologies designed to break down a subject's resistance became training modules in interrogation tactics. Various police departments adopted some of the less controversial techniques promoted by MK-Ultra for their investigative processes, unknowingly blurring the lines between ethical law enforcement and psychological manipulation. This crossover highlighted the dark potential of psychological expertise when its applications strayed from their original intentions. In the realm of healthcare, the findings from MK-Ultra, albeit twisted, inadvertently influenced psychological treatments. Aspects of the project led some practitioners to experiment with new therapeutic methodologies. While the intentions were aimed at advancing mental health treatments, there were undeniable ramifications from these unregulated adaptations, where patients could fall victim to unsafe practices or unproven theories. Consequently, the historical context of MK-Ultra serves as a reminder of the dual-edged nature of psychological research. Educational institutions were also affected, as researchers sought to understand the impacts of drugs and behavioral manipulation. Universities began to host studies stemming from MK-Ultra, leading to the rise of fields such as psychopharmacology and cognitive science. A range of studies intended to advance knowledge of cognitive functions found their basis in the controversial legacy of MK-Ultra, evolving from clandestine experiments into accepted academic research. While these advancements have undoubtedly benefited society, they also challenge the moral implications behind their origins. Moreover, the media played an essential role in the reach of MK-Ultra. The sensationalism surrounding the project attracted attention from journalists, artists, and filmmakers. This cultural exposure contributed to a phenomenon where conspiracy theories thrived alongside legitimate research. The portrayal of mind control in movies and literature sparked public intrigue and suspicion, urging societal exploration of psychological themes. The legacy of MK-Ultra, with its entangled narratives, provoked a complex dialogue regarding privacy, ethics, and the power dynamics inherent in knowledge. Perhaps one of the most profound effects of the MK-Ultra project lay in its impact on public trust. As the revelations of governmental experiments emerged, they instigated a wave of skepticism towards institutions that were once considered bastions of authority and truth. This skittish approach cultivated a generation of citizens more attuned to the nuances of power and surveillance, leading to a broader dialogue on consent and personal agency, discussions that remain deeply relevant today. In the aftermath of MK-Ultra, legislation and ethical guidelines began to take shape, seeking to prevent similar transgressions from occurring in the future. Regulatory bodies and committees emerged to oversee psychological research and healthcare practices, signifying a move toward protecting individuals from the potential abuse of power wielded by those with knowledge of the mind. This paradigm shift reshaped the landscape of research ethics, emboldening advocates for ethical treatment and informed consent. The story of MK-Ultra serves as a cautionary tale that underscores the importance of transparency and accountability in the realms of psychology, healthcare, and intelligence. As the project expanded into various sectors, it inadvertently highlighted the necessity for ethical standards that prioritize human dignity over experimentation. The interplay of power, knowledge, and morality remains a crucial discussion today, reminding us that the paths forged in experimentation carry significant consequences for individuals and society as a whole. In exploring the expansion and broadening scope of MK-Ultra, we uncover a narrative rich with complexity. It intertwines the pursuit of knowledge with ethical dilemmas and societal implications, offering insights into the nature of power structures. The legacy of MK-Ultra reminds us to tread cautiously in the pursuit of understanding, continuously reflecting on the moral implications of our actions and the far-reaching effects they may carry. The quest for knowledge will always dance along the edge of risk, with the potential to construct or deconstruct the very fabric of trust in human relationships. Throughout history, biological tests have often been conducted in secrecy, shrouded in layers of government protocol and national security. These tests, aimed at developing biological weaponry, have not only been the subject of scientific curiosity, but have also raised serious ethical concerns. One of the most troubling aspects of these tests is how they have, at times, negatively impacted unaware civilian populations. Imagine a small town, its residents going about their daily lives, completely unaware that they are part of a larger experiment. These scenes are disturbingly real in various instances, where governments have tested biological agents without public consent or knowledge. The reasons range from military preparedness to advancements in scientific understanding. However, the moral implications of such tests cannot be dismissed lightly. Consider the infamous tests conducted by the U.S. military during the Cold War era. In a series of experiments, the military released bacteria into the atmosphere to study how they spread. Cities like San Francisco became unwitting participants in these tests. Residents reported unusual symptoms, but the true cause was concealed from them for years. The government aimed to understand the vulnerability of large populations to biological attacks, but this came at a human cost. On the other side of the globe, similar events unfolded in the former Soviet Union. In their pursuit of building a robust arsenal of biological weapons, secret laboratories conducted trials that resulted in catastrophic consequences. An incident in the late 1970s in a city named Sverdlovsk highlighted the risks involved when a deadly strain of anthrax was accidentally released, leading to numerous civilian infections and deaths. The government's initial response was to cover up the events rather than acknowledge the mishap, leaving affected families in the dark. The consequences of biological tests extend beyond immediate health impacts. The psychological effects on individuals and communities can be profound. Imagine people feeling betrayed by their own government, left in a state of confusion and fear. Misinformation and cover-ups create a rift between authorities and the public, leading to distrust that can linger for generations. Survivors and their families face not only health issues, but also the repercussions of knowing they were part of an experiment without consent. There's also the issue of accountability. In many cases, those responsible for orchestrating these biological tests have evaded responsibility for their actions. The lack of transparency allows governments to conduct experiments under the guise of national security, often prioritizing strategic advantage over human lives. The real question remains: at what point do ethical standards become secondary to perceived threats? As technology and biology continue to evolve, the potential for new forms of biological weaponry grows. This raises the urgent need to ensure that ethical considerations are placed at the forefront of scientific exploration. The lessons learned from past experiments must guide current practices to safeguard public health and dignity. Public awareness and advocacy play crucial roles in holding governments accountable. Awareness campaigns can mobilize communities, pushing for transparency and more stringent ethical regulations. When individuals understand the historical context and consequences of biological testing, they are better equipped to demand change. Moreover, scientific oversight is essential. Establishing a framework that allows independent review of biological research ensures that the intentions behind experiments are scrutinized. Transparency in scientific endeavors can create a safer environment and help prevent history from repeating itself. The dark side of biological tests is an essential topic for discussion, highlighting the intersection of science, ethics, and public health. The ability to control disease and understand biological threats can offer significant benefits, but this power must be wielded responsibly. Balancing national security interests with the fundamental rights of individuals is crucial in preventing tragedies born from secrecy and lack of accountability. In conclusion, while scientific progress is vital for societal advancement, the history of biological weaponry tests serves as a stark reminder that ethical considerations cannot be an afterthought. Each individual's right to safety and dignity must always be prioritized over the secretive agendas of those in power. Engaging in thoughtful discussions about the implications of biological testing and fostering a culture of scrutiny can lead to a safer, more equitable world. The MK-Ultra program is often remembered as a dark chapter in the history of psychological experimentation, a shadow that still looms over the field of psychology today. This covert operation, initiated by the CIA during the 1950s, aimed to explore the potential of mind control through various means, including drugs, hypnosis, and sensory deprivation. While MK-Ultra officially concluded in the 1970s, its impact continues to shape our understanding of psychological theories and practices today. At its core, MK-Ultra was about manipulating human behavior and understanding the complexities of the mind. One of the most notorious aspects of the program was the use of substances like LSD to explore their effects on human consciousness. This exploration raises questions about consent, ethical boundaries, and the integrity of psychological research, issues that are still relevant in contemporary discussions. Today, the legacy of MK-Ultra can be seen in the ongoing debates surrounding informed consent and psychological experiments. The revelations about MK-Ultra highlighted the ethical responsibilities researchers have when working with human subjects. Individuals must be fully aware of the risks and implications of the studies they participate in. This principle of informed consent is now a cornerstone of ethical research guidelines, protecting participants from the kind of exploitation that was so prevalent during MK-Ultra. Moreover, the indiscriminate use of psychotropic drugs by MK-Ultra researchers has had a lasting impact on how we perceive pharmaceutical treatments in psychology and psychiatry. Today, many treatments for mental health conditions rely on medications that alter brain chemistry. The lessons learned from MK-Ultra remind us of the necessity for thorough scientific testing and ethical oversight when introducing new treatments into practice. This scrutiny ensures that the benefits significantly outweigh any potential risks, a standard that aims to safeguard the mental health and well-being of patients. The techniques explored during MK-Ultra, particularly in hypnosis and conditioning, continue to influence how psychologists understand human behavior. Behavioral psychology, which became prominent in the decades following the conclusion of MK-Ultra, focuses on how conditioning and environmental factors shape our actions. While contemporary research tends to emphasize the scientific basis for these psychological theories, awareness of MK-Ultra's methods brings forth a certain wariness. It reminds professionals to tread carefully in exploring the depths of human consciousness and behavior, as the implications of manipulation are profound. The study of trauma, another critical area of psychology, has also been significantly impacted by the revelations surrounding MK-Ultra. Many participants in the program suffered severe psychological consequences, leading to a greater understanding of trauma's long-term effects. This has spurred advancements in trauma-informed care practices, highlighting the importance of recognizing the impact of past experiences on an individual's current mental health. The discussions stemming from MK-Ultra's legacy encourage psychologists to integrate these understandings into their approaches, creating a more compassionate and effective framework for therapy. Furthermore, the paranoia and distrust that emerged from the exposure of MK-Ultra have seeped into public consciousness and continue to influence how people view governmental and institutional authority. This skepticism is evident in many contemporary movements questioning the ethics of surveillance, privacy, and the manipulation of information. The legacy of MK-Ultra serves as a reminder that the potential for abuse always exists in systems of power, leading to a more vigilant public dialogue about the ethics and transparency of scientific research. Finally, the sensational nature of MK-Ultra has spurred a plethora of popular culture narratives, from films to documentaries, weaving the concept of mind control into the fabric of society's fears and fascinations. While these narratives can sensationalize certain aspects of psychological research, they also provoke curiosity and discussion about the boundaries of science and the human mind. As a result, current psychological theories are often informed by both rigorous academic research and the cultural myths surrounding the concept of mind manipulation. In summary, the repercussions of MK-Ultra resonate through the halls of psychology today. Ethical considerations, the understanding of trauma, the scrutiny of pharmaceutical interventions, and a public wary of manipulation are all shaped by this historical program. The echoes of this clandestine experimentation remind us of the complex relationship between human behavior, ethics, and the quest for knowledge, providing a crucial context for ongoing explorations in the fascinating and intricate field of psychology. As we navigate through these discussions, we recognize the need for responsibility, empathy, and a commitment to the integrity of our understanding of the human mind. Operation Condor was a secret collaboration between several South American governments in the 1970s and 1980s aimed at eliminating political opposition. This operation allowed dictatorships in countries like Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Brazil to coordinate actions against perceived enemies, often leading to alarming human rights violations. The project was not only domestic, it had connections reaching across borders and involved assistance from powerful entities, including the CIA. The backdrop of this collaboration stemmed from the fear of communism during the Cold War. Following the rise of socialist governments in the region, many South American leaders, supported by the United States, believed that leftist ideologies posed a significant threat to their rule. In this climate of paranoia, Operation Condor emerged as a mechanism to bolster political repression. At the center of this operation were various intelligence agencies from the participating countries that shared information about opposition members, dissidents, and activists. The collaboration included coordinated efforts for surveillance, abduction, torture, and even assassination. Individuals who opposed the authoritarian regimes found themselves at extreme risk, often disappearing without a trace. The chilling reality was that in many cases, families were left with no information about the fate of their loved ones, leading to decades of uncertainty and grief. A notable aspect of Operation Condor was its network of abductions. For example, in the mid-1970s, Chilean agents, having fled from the Pinochet regime, sought refuge in Argentina. Under Operation Condor, these exiles were tracked down and kidnapped by operatives from both nations. This operation revealed a disturbing cruelty, as political dissenters were treated as enemies of the state, and their lives were often considered expendable. The United States played a pivotal role as a supporter of these regimes. During this period, the CIA provided funding, training, and logistical assistance to these authoritarian governments. Reports indicate that the agency was fully aware of the human rights abuses occurring under Operation Condor, but chose to overlook these violations in favor of suppressing communism. The moral implications of this support raise significant questions about the lengths to which governments will go to achieve political aims and the ethical responsibilities that accompany power. Torture was a common practice during Operation Condor. Detainees were subjected to unimaginable suffering in an attempt to extract information or instill fear. The infamous torture centers, like the one in Buenos Aires known as the ISMA, became symbols of brutality. Survivors of these facilities carry profound scars and memories of the horrors inflicted upon them, which remind the world of the importance of human rights and accountability. The impact of Operation Condor extends beyond the direct victims. It affected entire societies. The climate of fear led many citizens to remain silent about their government's actions. Trust in institutions eroded, and normal life was intermingled with anxiety over governmental actions. Families lived in the shadow of loss, and communities bore the scars of trauma, which influenced socio-political dynamics in these countries for years to come. Understanding Operation Condor requires acknowledging the historical context and the geopolitical factors that facilitated such an operation. The power struggles of the Cold War era resulted in alliances that often overlooked the sanctity of human life in favor of political expediency. Today, many of the truths surrounding this operation remain buried, as survivors and their families continue fighting for justice and recognition. The legacy of Operation Condor is not merely a historical recount. It serves as a reminder of the ongoing struggles for human rights around the world. The people affected by this dark chapter in history exemplify the resilience of humanity in the face of oppression. Advocacy groups continue to work tirelessly to uncover the truth, ensuring that those who suffered are not forgotten. In recent years, efforts have been made to confront the past openly. Trials have been held, and former officials have been prosecuted for their roles in these abductions and human rights abuses. These movements symbolize a broader global acknowledgement that history must be confronted to prevent the repetition of such atrocities. Therefore, the narrative of Operation Condor underscores the pivotal intersection of politics, morality, and human rights. It brings into question the responsibilities of those in power and the profound consequences borne by individuals and communities. Acknowledging this legacy not only honors the memories of those lost, but also inspires a commitment to justice and the protection of civil liberties for future generations. In the world of covert operations, where stealth and precision are pivotal, the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, has developed various innovative methods and substances to control situations without raising alarms. Among these advancements are the intriguing inert powders. These specially formulated substances possess the remarkable ability to incapacitate individuals without their awareness, allowing operatives to achieve their objectives discreetly. The concept behind these inert powders stems from the long-standing need for non-lethal methods that can neutralize a target while keeping encounters as low profile as possible. Imagine a scenario where a sensitive operation requires the gathering of intelligence from a group of individuals who may pose a potential threat. The use of traditional methods often raises suspicions and could jeopardize the mission. This is where inert powders come into play. The development of these substances often involves a combination of chemistry and behavioral science. The aim is to create powders that can be administered in such a way that they go unnoticed by the target. For instance, they might be introduced into environments where an individual might unknowingly inhale or come into contact with them. The right formulation can evoke a temporary state of incapacitation, allowing operatives to maneuver without interference. Inert powders can vary greatly in their composition. Some may be designed to induce mild confusion or disorientation, while others may affect physical coordination. One example of such a scenario might involve a covert operative slipping a fine powder into a target's drink or nearby environment. Upon exposure, the individual may experience a brief period where their cognitive abilities are impaired, providing the operatives the opportunity they need to proceed with their plan. Considering the ethical implications and the potential for misuse, the CIA and agencies around the world carefully regulate the development and deployment of these substances. It is crucial for them to balance the necessity of operational effectiveness with the moral responsibilities that come with using such techniques. The goal is not to inflict harm, but to manage situations and protect lives by neutralizing threats without escalating conflicts unnecessarily. Research into inert powders is part of a broader field of study that looks at the effects of various compounds on human physiology. Scientists are constantly exploring how different substances can influence behavior, perception, and motor skills, seeking to develop powders that are effective yet safe. Advances in pharmacology have allowed for a deeper understanding of how these substances can be created from naturally occurring compounds and engineered to achieve desired effects. Inert powders can be viewed through the lens of psychological warfare as well. By incapacitating a target non-lethally, operatives can induce fear or confusion, accessing sensitive information in the process. This method is particularly beneficial in scenarios where greater forces could lead to unwanted casualties or international incidents. By maintaining a level of ambiguity surrounding the techniques used, operatives can often complete their missions with minimal backlash. As technology has advanced, so too has the understanding of how to effectively utilize inert powders. The integration of sophisticated delivery methods can enhance the effectiveness of these substances. Modern advances in aerosol technology, for example, allow for the dissemination of powdered agents in a manner that is nearly undetectable, further enhancing the operational capabilities of covert teams. Moreover, the development of inert powders is not solely limited to the realm of espionage. There are numerous potential applications in law enforcement and military operations where non-lethal methods are preferred. Situations such as riot control or hostage situations could see the strategic use of incapacitating substances to de-escalate potentially violent encounters. As we explore the future of agents like these, it becomes evident that ethical considerations will play an increasingly important role. The line between protective measures and intrusive interference will need constant reassessment. Ongoing discussions around their use will encompass not just practical effects, but a deep dive into their moral implications. In an age where transparency and accountability are demanded, the methods of agencies must evolve to match public expectations while maintaining effectiveness. In conclusion, the evolution of inert powders represents a fascinating intersection of science, ethics, and operational strategy. The CIA continues to innovate in this arena, pushing the boundaries of what is possible while grappling with the implications of these advancements. As we gain a deeper understanding of human physiology and the dynamics of covert operations, the journey of inert powders reflects the ongoing quest for efficiency, secrecy, and responsibility in safeguarding national interests. In recent years, the concept of using high-altitude balloons for surveillance and observation has gained traction, sparking interest not only within the military and defense sectors, but also in various scientific and technological communities. Imagine sending a balloon high into the atmosphere, where it can float peacefully above the clouds, gathering data and images from a vantage point that remains unreachable by traditional ground or aerial methods. This technique builds upon concepts laid down by early satellite projects, which also sought to provide a comprehensive view of our planet. High-altitude balloons can ascend to altitudes exceeding 100,000 feet, far beyond the reach of commercial airliners and most weather activities. This height allows for an extensive observation area, covering vast landscapes in one glance. While satellites orbit high above the Earth, balloons offer unique advantages. They can be deployed with lower costs, providing more flexible missions that can be quickly adjusted or redirected based on the requirements of a specific project. Consider scanning agricultural fields, monitoring wildlife migrations, or even surveying disaster zones. The potential applications are myriad and growing rapidly. Unlike satellites, which require elaborate launch operations and long timelines, high-altitude balloons can be deployed with ease. For instance, when a sudden environmental disaster occurs, researchers can launch a balloon, carrying an array of sensors and cameras, to capture real-time data. This information can become crucial for understanding the immediate impacts and planning recovery efforts. Moreover, balloons can remain in the air for extended periods, sometimes lasting several days, depending on the size and design. The optics and technologies involved in high-altitude balloon missions are fascinating. Equipped with advanced cameras and sensing gear, these balloons can capture high-resolution images that help monitor changes in land use, track the effects of climate change, and even observe urban development over time. It's like having an eye in the sky that provides a bird's-eye view of the world, showcasing changes that most others would overlook. The data collected can help scientists and policymakers make informed decisions that shape the future of communities around the globe. Much of the inspiration behind these balloon operations comes from the historical advancements of the 20th century. As satellites began to provide unprecedented views of the Earth from space, researchers quickly realized the extensive advantages of aerial observation. However, satellites come with challenges such as the complexity of their technology and the high costs associated with maintaining them. High-altitude balloons, on the other hand, provide a user-friendly alternative that is proving suitable for a wide range of applications. Surveillance balloons are also playing an exciting role in borderless observation. In an increasingly connected world, the ability to observe regions without the complications of crossing borders is key. These balloons can hover just above national borders, offering insights into areas that may be difficult to monitor for security, environmental, or humanitarian reasons. For example, using balloons in conflict zones can provide insights into troop movements or resource distribution without the need for advanced and often politically sensitive satellite operations. Furthermore, as technology continues to evolve, so do the capabilities of these balloons. The integration of artificial intelligence in the analysis of the data they gather means that the interpretation can happen in real time. Imagine a balloon collecting data seamlessly, sending it back to analysts on the ground who can interpret it almost instantly, creating a responsive cycle of observation and reaction that wasn't possible just a few short decades ago. While the privacy concerns surrounding surveillance are valid and complex, high-altitude balloon operations largely focus on environmentally beneficial applications and humanitarian efforts. By monitoring natural disasters or environmental degradation, these systems prioritize the well-being of ecosystems and vulnerable communities, offering a fresh perspective on the shared responsibility we have toward maintaining our planet. Overall, the realm of surveillance balloon testing is an exciting intersection of technology, science, and creativity. It offers new possibilities for exploration and understanding, allowing us to observe our world from a different perspective. As we continue to innovate and explore these high-altitude opportunities, we can expect to see even greater advancements that will enhance our awareness of the environment and the rapidly changing landscapes of our lives. The future is bright for those who look at the skies and imagine all that can be achieved from above, fostering progress while keeping one eye on the ground and its ever-evolving needs.